My name is Robert Hyde, and I am the chair of the Historic Landmarks Commission. We're going to start our June meeting now. Wayne, am I required to read my statement again?
Yeah, you should probably read it. I believe we need to read that once a month.
Yeah,
yes. Thanks.
I, Robert Hyde, as chair of the Historic Landmarks Commission, that's where I can be heard. Hereby determine that conducting the public meetings in an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. Due to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention social distancing requirements, I find that conducting a meeting at the anchor location constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the location. So we will once again be on a virtual meeting here. So welcome everybody tonight. Do we have any, the first agenda item is the revisions to the rules of procedure document. Michaela, are you going to handle that?
I am so going to handle that. I'm so excited about it.
You've been waiting all day, haven't you?
Yes. Just a moment. I got a message. Sorry. Yes, I have been waiting all day, and I know it was the most riveting thing at your last Landmark Commission meeting. And we had it listed as a work session, so technically we weren't able to make a motion as a commission and approve them. And so we popped them on the agenda for other business and are just asking the commission to take some action on the revised document this evening. If the commission had any other edits or any concerns or anything, obviously we could speak to those. If you were good with the comments or the changes and revisions, I would really appreciate some action on it before moving on to the public hearing items.
So where do I look at the document, Michaela? Is it in last month's folder? Because I don't see it on today's folder.
It would be in last month's folder, hopefully in this month's Dropbox as well. Let me see.
So the May 6th one, yeah. Okay, I have it. Yeah, I have it here in front of me. It is in last month's folder.
Okay.
So does anybody, commissioners, does anybody have any comments before we take action on this, the rules of procedure? Just one at a time, okay?
I'm going to need a moment to look it over because I missed last meeting. So I can't comment yet. So other people can speak and I'll do a quick skim of that.
Mike, are you here?
Actually,
Mike's not here, is he?
he is not there. I'm just double checking that you actually have the right version in your Dropbox.
Okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, very good.
Actually, it is not there.
It is in last month's.
Yeah, I've got it in front of me.
I have an edited version that I thought had gone in Dropbox a couple days ago, but it is not there. Let me re-enter it there.
We've had some issues, commissioners, with Dropbox amongst staff where we're loading things into Dropbox and it'll show up for half of us and for half of us it is not.
So we've got a long agenda tonight. Why don't we go ahead with the agenda and we'll come back to, you could put it in, someone can put it in during our meeting. We'll come back to it at the end.
Hannah, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Just make a motion to move ahead and come back.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So would,
I'll make a motion that we postpone the discussion review of the rules of procedure till the end of this meeting.
we have a second.
I will second that.
Is that John or David? Who was that?
The second one was by Mike Fella.
Oh, Mike, sorry. I don't see on the screen who's saying it, so. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, let's go through the list. John?
Aye.
Aiden?
Aye.
Kenton?
Aye.
You made the motion. Victoria?
Aye.
David Richardson?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
Okay, Babs is not here, correct? Okay, that's unanimous with the people that are here, so we'll move that till the end. Now I'm going to go on with the next item. Is anybody here to make public comments of a general nature?
Commissioner Hyde, we do need to take a vote on the minutes from last meeting.
Yep, my mistake, sorry. So the minutes from the May 6th meeting. So I don't see the minutes in my Dropbox. Am I missing something? Do any of you have the minutes in your Dropbox for the May 6th meeting? Okay, there they are. I see they are here. My apologies. Does anybody have any comments on these minutes?
No, I was absent, so I can't speak to them.
Yeah, it was too.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Iwanowski.
Okay, John, I see you were here. We have a second.
Victoria, I'll second.
Victoria, second. Those in favor. John made the motion. Aiden?
Aye.
Kenton?
Recuse.
Victoria?
Aye.
David?
Abstain.
Michael?
Aye.
Okay, that's a majority and unanimous, so the minutes are approved. Okay, back to the agenda. We're gonna, first, well, again, do we have anyone here, Michaela or Wayne, do we have anyone here for public comment not on any of the matters on the agenda?
We do. Before we get into that, I just want to provide a little bit of instructions to those that are visiting us that would like to speak during the public hearing. Trying to share my screen here. Give me just a minute. For those of you that are joining us that would like to join in at a public hearing and speak to an item, just a couple of things. If you are already into the meeting, there's a place as you're looking at your computer here. It's this little hand. That's supposed to be a hand. It's really hard to see. but we would ask that when you would like to speak, that you click on that. So it gives us an indication that you would like to speak. After you have spoken, if you could please click that again and remove the hand so we could kind of keep track of who wants to speak at each item, that would be great. Another thing is I have the screen up. If for those of you that are watching, if you're having any sort of issues, it might be a good time to write down this email address. It's historiclandmarks.comments@slcgov.com. We have people that are monitoring those email or that email address. And if you are have any issues or would just like to leave a comment there, you can leave a comment there and we will read that into the record for you. And I do know that we have Cindy Cromer here who would like to speak in the general comment section. Cindy, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. This comment is about the cultural landscapes, which was on your agenda back in April. There was a staff memo. It was a work session. And I'm quoting from the bottom of page 2. The lack of documentation and guidance for landscapes results in an unpredictable process for both the managers of these sites and commissioners reviewing proposals. To this statement in the memo, I would like to add the lack of a predictable process for the public regarding modifications to publicly owned property. My own efforts on this topic began over 25 years ago when Mayor Corradini indicated there would be no funds for the shabby Liberty Park unless the northwest corner became a stormwater detention basin. The solution was obvious to me, but that's when I realized that in the absence of guidelines, bad things could happen in our park spaces. So the first problem is that we could make irrevocable and unfounded decisions based on lack of information. The second issue is that in the absence of a structured program for change in our historic parks, the city can expend precious funds which should be reinvested in the spaces, not spent on arguing with the citizenry. Those of you who were on the commission from 2018 to 2020 know that the cost of the pump building at 4th Avenue and Canyon Road accelerated because of the absence of guidelines and the vigilance of the advocates for the park. There are 5 other examples on the email that I sent you, all of them in Liberty Park, which show how the lack of guidelines can cost the city precious funds. We should, of course, strive to do the right thing in a landscape which cannot be replicated in a lifetime, if ever. We should also avoid wasting funds on projects which are unnecessary and/or ill-conceived. And the planning staff's time, which went into obtaining certificates of appropriateness for unnecessary projects, was completely wasted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Any other public comments, Wayne?
I don't see any hands raised at this time.
Okay. Do you have, I'm going in backwards order. I have no report as the chair. Mike Vila, do you have any report as vice chair?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other report from the director?
I do not have anything. Not sure if Michaela is still here. Do not see her, so nope, we're good.
I have something, Wayne.
Oh, Molly has something. Go ahead, Molly.
Thanks. I just wanted to let the commission and anyone else listening know that I am going to be stepping down as a planning manager for Salt Lake City, effective tomorrow, actually. And I am doing this for a number of reasons and have a number of things lined up in front of me. One of which is I'll be doing more teaching at the U in the fall, the Urban Design Studio, and potentially another course as well. And I'm going to be starting my own practice, and I am co-editing a book with a colleague. So I still have a full plate, but I am going to take a few weeks this summer to kind of regroup and figure out what my what my niche is going forward, but you won't see my face in the meetings, at least from this side of the screen for a while. So thank you very much for letting me be a part of your discussions the last few years.
Thank you, Molly. Well, we'll miss seeing you around. Not sure I want to see you on the other side, but that'd be okay too. If there's nothing else in general nature, we'll go ahead and get into the agenda. The first item is the Salisbury Mansion at 547 East on First South. Let's get the right.
I'm not sure that that's the right.
Whoops, I'm looking at the minutes. I knew that wasn't right. Doesn't actually want.
First one is the dormer edition at approximately 1017 East First Ave.
I've got to get out of the minutes. I got too many screens here, Wayne.
No problem.
So we are on the dormer edition. Annette Larson. So Annette, would you proceed, please?
Thank you. Commissioner, I am just setting up my screen. Are you able to see my screen that I've shared? Yes. Great. So this proposal is for dormer additions located at 1017 East First Avenue. The applicant and property owner is Dennis Webb, and he's requesting a minor alteration and a special exception in order to construct an addition on a house in the Avenue's local historic district. As part of the application is to request in order for the attic additions to be approved. The first is a minor alteration, as the 3 new attic additions are proposed on a contributing residential building in the local historic district. The second is for a special exception, as the 3 new attic additions would require additional building height and additional wall height than what is allowed in the zoning district. Planning staff is recommending that the Historic Landmark Commission approve the minor alteration and special exception request, as staff has found that the newly designed project meets the intent of the local historic district and the guidelines in the preservation handbook. The property under review is located in the Avenue's local historic district and fronts along First Avenue. The property is a single-family house and is bounded on the east and west by single-family houses as well. The property is currently under enforcement for work done on the house without a certificate of appropriateness and without a building permit. The work conducted was for attic additions on the east and north sides of the house. After the enforcement case, the property owner applied for a certificate of appropriateness to address these additions. The Historic Landmark Commission heard this request in 2018 and denied the request for the attic additions and found that the proposal did not meet the standards for a certificate of appropriateness. Staff has worked with the applicant on multiple revisions for the attic additions and determined the current proposal meets the standards of the local historic district and is compatible with the character of the neighborhood. The new configuration would require that the existing attic additions be reconstructed. The proposed addition will still be visible from the street, but its visual impact from the street is reduced from its current form that's under enforcement. Also, the additions will be constructed around an existing chimney. The chimney will not be altered and will remain mostly visible from the street. The original east slope of the house included a small dormer addition that was located behind the original chimney. This original dormer form was a shed roof with 3 square picture windows. The proposal would create 3 new roof additions on the east slope of the roof to the side of the house and along the north slope of the roof on the rear of the house. The dormer additions on the side of the house will include a gable dormer that will be visible from the street. The other proposed side dormer addition is a shed roof dormer that is also windowed. The proposed north roof addition, which is situated towards the rear of the house will be a gable type of dormer and will be inline to the peak of the roof of the house. Staff discussed with the property owner and a local architect about pushing the east sloping gable dormer behind the chimney to preserve the original form of the house and to keep the chimney as visible from the street as possible. However, this east gabled dormer is placed in a position to allow access to the attic space next to a stairway, and which enables this attic space to be fully accessible. A special exception for additional overall building height and exterior wall height is required as the proposed additions to the house will exceed the zoning district's building and wall height standards. The applicant submitted a special exception request because the attic additions do not comply with wall and building height in the SR1A district. The allowed wall height in the SR1A district is 16 feet. The proposed wall height with the attic additions will be 23 feet on the east gable dormer, 25 feet on the shed dormer, and approximately 24 feet on the rear dormer. The allowed building height in the SR1A district is 23 feet. The existing building exceeds this height with 29 feet. The proposed dormer additions will not exceed this building height, with the rear proposed dormer of 29 feet as well, approximately 26 feet for the east facing gabled dormer and 25 feet on the shed dormer. Each of the proposed dormers will contain windows of different sizes and window types. The gable dormer on the east sloping roof will include single hung windows that are similar in shape and type as other windows that are original to the front facade of the house. The gable dormer on the rear facing slope of the house will also have similar windows as the proposed dormer nearest the street. The windows proposed on the shed dormer that's not visible from the street will be square picture windows, which is similar to the picture windows on the gable portion of the original house. The exterior materials of the proposed dormer additions are wood shingle material and are dependent on the style of dormer and their placement. The gable dormer addition on the east that will be nearest to the street will include fish scale pattern wood shingle and will match the gabled forms on the front facade of the house. The shed dormer will be constructed of white pine horizontal shiplap material. This proposed material is different from the other materials used on the historic house. However, this shed dormer will not be visible from the street, and it's appropriate to the shed style dormer. And then finally, the rear dormer materials will match the first floor addition that's also on the rear of the house, and will have a natural wood shingle siding that will remain unpainted. So again, planning staff is recommending that the Historic Landmark Commission approve the minor alteration and special exception requests. And it appears that Dennis Webb, who's the applicant and property owner, is also present. And I'm also available if the commission has any questions as well.
Thank you, Nanette. Does anyone have any questions for Nanette? If not, we will thank her. And do we have the applicant available to speak next?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Yes, thank you, Nanette. That's a great description of what I'm requesting. I think the drawings and the architect myself spent a lot of time to get this thing to where it was subordinate to the existing construction as well as the neighborhood itself. I think the general standards and consideration for the special exceptions is pretty self-explanatory. From what you've seen. I have lived in this home for over 30 years now, and I've taken out permits, and this was a triplex when I purchased this home. So I've put a lot of money, time, and energy into preserving this home as much as possible. So that being said, I do believe what you've been presented is pretty much what we have to turn this around and get this to compliant measures to where we can go forward. There's one last thing that I wanted to bring up as far as my actual enforcement officer that's in charge of this case. I got a letter from him actually on June, actually it was on September 10th of 2020. And it was a letter that was forcing me into taking care of this issue that we're now sitting in front of and discussing. And then 3 weeks later, on the 30th, I received a letter from the same individual where they were actually assessing daily fines for both of the violations of $25 per fine per day, which I was able to turn that around and get this to stop. But the thing that I have is I have a problem right behind my home. It's a bar named Kachina's Restaurant and Bar. And they've been making all kinds of noise and havoc. And actually, they've been in many violations, amplified music. They built a fence without the Planning Commission's permission. There was no drawing submitted. He blocks off his entrance, so parking can't be obtained by patrons. They're open till midnight. It's noisy. He has bands. It's a mess. It's a real mess. And I don't want to go too much into it, but this same gentleman, Robert Garbeck, is the same inspector. And there's nothing that's been done to Kachina's, nothing at all. And the reason this letter was given to me, I believe, is because last year his venues went up till the same time. And I was complaining, as well as many of the neighbors, how noisy and disrespectful that business had become. And I'm requesting that I get another officer, enforcement officer, on my case. This happened right in the middle of COVID. For me to have to go out and find people to come into my home and take care of this problem. If you look at the numbers, September was the most infectious time in Utah for COVID. So everybody else was, told to stay home, work out of their office, work out of home instead of office. And I'm now having to go through all this, trying to get people in my home during COVID and subjecting my family to COVID as well. And I just didn't appreciate this letter during that time. I lost a lot of sleep over this letter. It cost me a lot of stress and duress. And I don't want this gentleman on my case. And I feel that's fair. I would like a different officer assigned to my case if possible. Thank you.
Okay. So Mr. Webb, we appreciate the situation. I'm sure it must be difficult to deal with. We have a letter that we received from your neighbor, Richard Gowers, about the same subject. Unfortunately, that we have zero jurisdiction for this issue, and we're the Landmarks Commission. We're only dealing today with your dormers, and we invite you to go to the city, to the planning department, or other appropriate places at the city for people to deal with your requests.
Thank you for the advice.
So we will go ahead. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Webb on the dormer application for approval? If not, we will open this up. Aiden, do you have a comment?
Yes, Robert. I just had a question for Mr. Webb. I'm trying to locate the portion I wanted to reference in the staff report. I can't find it to quote it, but or I was just wondering, Mr. Webb, I believe that I read that the planning department did notify you that you would have to go through approval for the addition of the 3 dormers to your historic structure, and it said that you preferred not to. So I was just wondering your reasoning behind constructing these dormers, or kind of
well, I think, yeah, okay. I have to take you back to what was going on in my attic prior to me starting the dormer. I literally, my roof was falling in. You could see through it. It was leaking at every corner. And it wasn't that I didn't prefer, I was running out of time. It was getting later in the year, and these things take 3 to 6 months. And I was looking at a winter situation. So I'm like, I better get this done, and so I don't have any more holes, and just do it. And if you could see, I've taken out many permits prior to this particular job. And I've built a whole addition on the back of my home, a front porch. I've done quite a few different add-ons through your process. But this caught me off guard because the roof was in such bad condition that I decided I'm going to go ahead and get this done and just be done with it because it's a mess up there. So that's my initial reason. It wasn't that I was trying to circumvent the situation. I actually had Carl Leahy come into my home prior to constructing this about 5 months before, just so he could get a feel for what I was dealing with. And time went by and time went by, and I didn't do it, and it was too late. And so I just thought, well, I better get this thing done. I've got a big mess on my hand as far as my roof. And that's really what happened. And Carl can concur with that. He was in my home, and he's, I think, in charge of you people. So I did initially start out that way. I really did.
Okay, yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know if there was a certain circumstance, but yeah, thank you for answering that.
Not a problem.
Any other commissioner questions for Mr. Webb? If not, we will turn this over to the public. Do we have anyone here for public comment?
I did not see any hands raised. Just once again, for those of you that want to participate, there's a little hand in your computer screen. If you could hit that and let us know. I don't see any. And I'll just kind of let everybody know again, the email address is historiclandmarks. That's one word, historiclandmarks.comments@slcgov.com if you want to email comments in. But I do not see anyone that wishes to speak on this.
Okay. Well, we'll close the public comment period then. Commissioners, is there any comment? No one's asked questions. Does anyone have any discussion they want to have before we entertain a motion on this matter?
I think that they have worked closely with the city, so I'm pleased about that and would call for a vote.
Anybody want to make a comment before Babs makes a motion for us?
I'm ready for Babs to go for it.
You got the motion sheet in front of you there, Babs?
I do not. I've had massive troubles with my computer here, and it's downsized somewhere in hell.
I can do it here, Babs.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. With reference to PLN HLC 2019-00335 and PLN HLC 2021-00501, 1017 East First Avenue. Based on the information in the staff report, I move that the Historic Landmark Commission approve the minor alteration as presented in that petition. Additionally, I move that the Historic Landmark Commission approve the proposed special exception as presented in the second petition.
We have a second?
I'll second that, Mike Vella.
That was a second from Mike. So we're going to go through with a vote for those in favor or not. Babs?
Yay, I vote in favor.
John?
Yes.
Aiden?
Yes.
Kenton?
Yes.
You made the vote. Victoria?
Yes.
David?
This is a huge improvement over what we saw last time. Yes, aye.
And Mike?
Yes.
So that's unanimous and passes. Thank you, Mr. Webb, and let's get them built. We're now going to move to The major alteration, special exception at 761 North on Wall Street. This matter is being handled by Caitlin. I was with the city. Caitlin, you want to take it over?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request that the Landmarks Commission has seen before. It's been several months and the homeowner has begun with the modifications that the Landmarks Commission approved originally. And they are returning to ask for a modification to their earlier approval just to increase a little bit of living space in the approved addition. The homeowner is asking for an increase in the size of her writer's nook, which is the easternmost wing of the home. All in all, it is an additional 4 feet and 2 3/4 inch depth footprint, which equates to approximately an increase of 25.5 square feet overall. And this would increase the lot coverage by less than 1% of the total lot size. This property is located in the SR1A zone where a maximum lot coverage of 40% is allowed. The Landmarks Commission previously approved lot coverage of 44% in the earlier approval. This would increase that to 44.97% lot coverage. Additionally, since this addition would push farther east towards the property line, of course, they're coming back to modify the approved special exception. The Landmarks Commission already approved the addition plan that has 2 corners of the building touching the property line, and this proposed modification would bring that last corner of the building to about 1 foot from the property line. This is, of course, a very irregularly shaped lot, and it is also much smaller than the surrounding lots in the area. So staff has taken a look at the proposed modifications, and we found that it does comply with the guidelines set forth in our residential design guidelines book, as well as the adopted standards and ordinances. The overall materials that the commission approved previously will not be altered. There will not be a change in the roof shape or the exterior cladding materials or the windows. They are simply asking for an additional bit of living space on their small and irregular lots. So that is what I have for you. We have both the homeowner and her architect on the line if you have any questions for them, or if you have questions for me, I'm happy to take those as well.
Commissioners, any questions for Caitlin?
When I went by this house, is this already built, or was I on the wrong house? Is this it looked like it was wood and it was facing east? Nope. That was the house next door. Got it.
Yep.
No, that was my mistake.
Is this White House, and the addition that the owner was previously approved to remove is that little shed roof addition off to the left-hand side of that photo. So that has been demolished, and the homeowner is just looking to begin reconstruction of that addition space.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions or any questions of Caitlin? If not, we'll turn the time over to the owner and their architect.
Sarah,
Hello, this is an architect. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. We are just asking to increase this writing studio, like Caitlin mentioned, 4'2", and we are not changing any roof profile or material. And I was wondering if this is possible.
Hi,
this
Sorry, this is the homeowner. I don't know that I'm getting. I am on. And I dislike the echoes. Much. Thanks for considering.
So Sarah, are you there? Somebody has too many microphones.
If everyone who isn't currently presenting will mute, then you should be able to hear Sarah.
Okay, so this is Sarah. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, I don't know what to add. Caitlin, thanks for your presentation. You know, being able to get this on the agenda quickly because we have done the demolition and we're starting the construction and just waiting to pour these footprints to see if we can get this approval. You know, it wasn't until it got staked out that I realized just how small this writing nook, so to speak, is. And then going back and looking at the plan, saw that, you know, if the commission would approve an additional bit of lot coverage, an additional point for the setback, that this would make this space so much more functional. Also, obviously, I mean, with the cost of construction, I'm, you know, and having gotten rid of, I think it was 175 square feet to rebuild this. It's just not been an incredibly, you know, lucrative financially investment. So being able to get the most square footage possible will help me recoup some of the investment costs. And again, just make the space more functional. So I appreciate the consideration. And again, thanks, Caitlin, for the presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any public comments?
Let's see, I don't see any hands raised or emails. We did receive an email. Somebody would like to speak on another matter later, so I just want to point out, sounds like people are trying to maybe comment on YouTube. You actually need to go into this meeting, link to it from the agenda on the Salt Lake City's webpage. So it sounds like some people want to comment on the Thistle Avenue, which is the last. So you can either send an email to us and we'll read it, or actually link into the meeting. As far as this item, I do not see any hands raised or anybody that wishes to speak.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing. Is there any comment from commissioners? We'll now have our own closed session. Does anyone have anything to say about this?
Yeah, Robert, I think given how tight that spot is and the constraints, it's appropriate and okay for the applicant to extend that little room as she wishes. So I'm in the approval ranks for this one.
I am as well, Kenton. Staff has found it compliant with the residential guidelines, so I'm ready to approve.
Is there anyone
anybody that as well, Robert, with a triangular site, looks larger than it is, but I'm totally.
So unless a commissioner disagrees with that, why don't one of you make a motion?
I don't have the motion sheet here, but I'm happy as long as we're under 45% coverage. And I want to be on the record for that.
Okay. Thank you, David. Would Ken, you got your motion sheet there? You want to make a motion again for us, my friend?
Yes, I'm ready to go on this. In reference to PLN HLC 2020-00125, Based on the information in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Historic Landmark Commission approve the proposed modifications to said petition with the following conditions: that the applicant obtain all required demolition and building permits, as well as comply with all applicable standards set forth in Salt Lake City ordinances. The staff will be responsible for reviewing the building permit request to ensure compliance with the issued certificate of appropriateness.
You have a second?
Richardson, second.
Second from David. Those in favor, Babs?
In favor, sorry.
No problem. John?
Yes.
Aiden?
Yes.
Kenton?
Yep.
Victoria?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Michael?
Yes.
That unanimously has been approved by the entire commission. So thank you, and good luck, applicant, with your project.
Thank you all so much.
You bet. We're going to now move to the Murphy Garage at 1075 3rd Avenue. And that matter is being handled by Nelson Knight. We will turn the time over to you, Nelson.
Thank you, Chairman Hyde. I am just trying to get this.
That bow tie is a nice addition, Nelson, to the city environment. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. My computer, I have a new computer and it seems to be grumpy.
Your camera and microphone work great, and you look wonderful with that candy stripe and the bow tie.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, ready to go to the
We'll
theater.
just, wait, if we can just go with that, then that would be great, you know? Okay.
Anyone ready to make a motion to approve of Nelson's outfit tonight?
So moved.
So moved.
There, it's starting up now, Nelson.
Okay, excellent. Just wants to be very slow. This is why you don't get a new computer a week before the meeting. And again, I apologize.
No problem.
Nelson, if you would like to, you can email me or Molly your presentation, and then we can.
Okay, I'm going to do that for the next one. Is everybody seeing the screen now?
The first sheet is up, Nelson.
Okay, great. There we go. All right. So this is a request from Jason Wheeler of Assist Community Design Center. They are proposing to construct a new 2-story accessory building that's located in the rear yard of the existing single-family residence at 1076 3rd Avenue. The structure is a 2-story building. It would include a main level 2-car garage, and then an accessory dwelling unit is proposed for the second story. You're reviewing this as a certificate of appropriateness for new construction of the garage and accessory dwelling unit, and then also a special exception for additional height for the structure. It's kind of in a unique situation due to the topography and layout of that particular block, and the height of the subject building. I'll get into that in just a moment. There we go. Okay. So this parcel is located on the south side of 3rd Avenue between R and S Streets. It's zoned SR1A, where accessory dwelling units are a permitted use. Planning staff, typically we processed these ADU requests administratively, but in this case, we elected to bring the proposal to the full commission based on the size of the proposed building, which requires a special exception for additional height. You can see the bungalow there. It dates from 1924. That's the existing principal structure. And then the site proposed, which is adjacent to the alley there. You can see the site slopes significantly. Oh, you're not going to see it there though. From north to south, and so the garage abuts an alley and is actually significantly below the height of the existing residence. This house is the only single-story structure on this block face. All other residences are 2+ stories with additional walkout basements. This is the proposed building here, the elevations. The proposed building is simple articulation and proportion reflecting its character as an accessory structure, with a rhythm of openings and ratio of wall to openings within the range of those established by the surrounding structures. You can see that on the south side, the garage doors are single width and have just contemporary style details, as does the overall style of the building. The ADU itself would be accessed via a stairway on the north side, as you can see on the north elevation, and a deck. The doors and glazing on this side would provide additional light and ventilation for the tenants, while mitigating any effect on other properties because it faces the main house on this lot. In our initial discussions, staff requested that the applicants look at additional glazing on the other facades. That exceeds the minimums required by the building code for egress, light, and ventilation, but we felt that it fit into, it was more characteristics of the surrounding buildings and accessory structures. This is kind of a context view here. You can see the relationship of the structure here, the existing house. You can see a little bit of the slope, and then views of the structure from the southwest and also directly south from the alley. The materials proposed are narrow vertical wood siding, horizontal wood shiplap siding, and overall the garage has been designed, with the exception of the height, to meet the requirements of an accessory dwelling and an accessory dwelling unit within an accessory structure, a 2-story building like this. Moving right along, there we go. Okay. These are showing some views of the surrounding context. The proposed garage ADU is not located adjacent to any streets or sidewalks. It's on that existing private alley streetscape. The streetscape comprises 7 accessory structures along both sides of the alley. It also includes open parking areas, fences, and the sides of 2 buildings, which you can see at the lower left-hand and the lower right-hand corners of those lots. They're 114 R Street and 115 S Street. All the structures are along this lot are primarily 1-story structures sited uniformly along the right-of-way. The proposed garage and ADU will maintain a consistent setback with the neighboring garages, and as well as the front lines along the alley. This is these are the views on the eastern portion of the block of the alley. There we go. And these are those along the western portion. You can see that house on S Street, or excuse me, on R Street, the little bungalow, and the outbuildings along the 3rd Avenue frontage there. In the staff report, there are a listing of a number of other 2-story accessory structures in the immediate vicinity. This one is very close, 2 lots away from the proposed site. This is a former carriage house that sits on S Street with frontage there. It was built in 1895, and it serves both 1084 and 1088 3rd Avenue. It's one of the few significant outbuildings classified as significant structures within the Avenue's historic district. Most of them are maybe contributing, but don't rise to the level of this size and historical significance. The applicants use this building as an example for their design in form, massing, roof shape, and overall detailing. You can see here an aerial view of the proposed building with its surrounding context. The top view is looking at the structure from the corner of 3rd Avenue and S Street, looking southwest. So you can see the generally much larger structures along the 3rd Avenue frontage. They're 1.5 and 2-story buildings, then with a walkout basement because of the topography. You can also see that S Street carriage house and the similar scale of that building. Below, you see the same structures, but you can also see the background buildings. The structures along 2nd Avenue are generally lower in scale, although you have an apartment building on the corner of R Street and 2nd Avenue. Those are all 1 and 1.5-story bungalows for the most part. Here you can see a proposed view and an existing view of the garage, and what you see down the alley from the same spot, roughly. The principal garage entrance would be accessed by this alley, and the ADU would be accessed via a concrete pathway and stairs and pathway from the alley, which matches the current approaches to adjacent accessory dwellings along the alley. The proposed ADU will be sited at the rear of the lot. You can see a view here from R Street looking up the same alley, only toward the east. And you can see that only a portion of the accessory building would be visible from the R and S streets. this is a little bit of an explanation of the special exception request. An accessory structure with a second story ADU, such as is proposed here, that it may be the same height as the single family dwelling on the property up to a maximum of 24 feet. The proposed building here, as you can see, exceeds the height of the existing house on the lot, which at the front 3rd Avenue side is approximately 18 feet 6 inches. And then at its highest point is approximately 23 feet from grade. You can see that's further back on the property. Because of that elevation difference, the structure, I'm sorry, this is going really slow and I can't keep up with my own narrative here, or it's not keeping up with me. So I'm going to wing it here. The proposed height of the ADU itself is 23 feet 10 inches. If the principal structure were taller and was more in keeping with the scale of the other buildings that it adjoins along 3rd Avenue, it would be, this building would meet that height standard. As it is, it's about a 10-inch height difference. You can see how the grade change really affects the or really affects the height. And so the height of the proposed ADU is actually below the height of the roof line for the principal structure. We hadn't received any public comments at the time this report was completed, and I haven't checked in the last little while, but hadn't received as of an hour ago or so. Our recommendation is that the HLC approve the proposed new construction, also the special exception for the additional height, and we would recommend that you put the condition of approval of all final design details, including any specific direction, which you may express at this meeting, and delegate that to the planning staff.
Thank you, Nelson.
Yes, and again, sorry.
What's the square footage of the upstairs in that above the garage?
I was just looking at that, Robert, so I could probably tell you.
Yeah, I had to. It's 479 footprint, 647 of the ADU up above.
I'm looking for it. That's what it looks like. It was 400 something.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Nelson before we turn to the applicant?
Single question, Nelson. Is the alley face of the proposed garage, is that in line with the Carriage house and other accessory buildings along the alley, or is it closer to the alley? It was hard to tell from it looked like it was out of that line.
Yeah, let me go back one here. There we go. Too far. Yeah, that rendering is a little confusing here. The property, the face of the building on the south side facing the alley is really driven by the presence of that telephone pole there. So it's more or less in line. I can't say that it's exactly along the street face, but the difference would be under 5 feet or so.
And Nelson, if I may, it's actually, I think because of the height of the structure and because of those power lines that are there, we have to be at least 10 feet away from the power lines.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it actually sits a little bit further back than that carriage house that's to the east.
Yeah, and this is Jason Wheeler, the architect, and given my technical problems, he may be able to give you better answers than I can right now.
No, Jason,
Yeah, I think if you look at the image that's on your screen right now, Nelson, at the bottom right, you can see how the carriage house there almost abuts the alley. You know, it's just a couple of feet off of the pavement, and in our proposal, we're, I think, a little over 10 feet off the back of the pavement.
Sorry if you said this and I'm making you repeat yourself, but are the parking stalls under the ADU, is one for the primary residence and one's for the ADU, or are they both for the ADU? Or I'm just wondering about on-street parking and how this could affect that.
Yeah, understandable. There are two parking spots inside the garage, and then there's a parking spot also on the east side of the garage. I'm not sure how they're going to
Off the alley.
Yeah.
Okay. And one other question: the house across the street looks like it's substantially higher, right? So, I mean, it looks like it's 20 feet higher or so. Would that be about accurate? 15, 20 feet?
House across the street.
Across 3rd Avenue. I'm just kind of curious about some view shed stuff and who's going to see it. And...
So the slope gets even steeper on the other side of 3rd Avenue. So
yeah, I used to live a block from there on 3rd Avenue, and the north side of 3rd Avenue in that area, those houses are significantly higher up off the road compared to the south side of the street. Does anyone else have any comments? Or Nelson, if not, we'll go ahead and invite the applicant to speak at this time.
Well, thank you, Nelson. Thank you for the presentation. I think he's done a really great job of outlining what we're thinking as far as historic context for the carriage house. Just in context, this would be built for Paul and Jenna Murphy, who live at the property, and we're serving as the architect on this project. I do have a little bit of personal interest. Let's see, I moved back to Salt Lake from Omaha about 5 years ago, first time living here. And after moving here, found out from my parents that my great-grandfather was born on the corner of S and 3rd Avenue. So that carriage house is right where his family's farm was. And they moved out in 1895, right when those other two houses were built. So this block has a little bit of personal interest for me. And as far as the slopes on the terrain go, you know, I bike home every day from downtown, and I can certainly attest that as you cross 3rd Avenue and head up towards 4th Avenue, it gets very steep. So the residences that are there on the north side of 3rd Avenue, you know, do have a view basically over the roofs of the properties that are on the south side of the street. In response to one of the commissioner's questions, so there is a bit of a view shed there, but the proposed ADU would sit below that. I think at the very end of Nelson's presentation, he showed that section that we did of the site that really illustrates how that fits in, how the ADU would fit in with the existing property. And as Nelson alluded, all of the other properties that are along that side of 3rd Avenue are a full story higher, at least, than the Murphy's residence is. It's the only single story bungalow on that street. You know, it's an interesting time as the city is implementing this new ADU ordinance. I think we're one of the first ones to propose a structure like this in the avenues. But I think it shows how we can successfully, you know, meet the requirements of the avenues district and also meet the allowances that the ADU overlay provides, which really contributes to us being able to build more housing in our communities. housing that's close to downtown, that doesn't add a lot of additional infrastructure requirement, and that will continue to help Salt Lake City, thrive moving forward. And I think Nelson's done a terrific job of presenting, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I believe Paul and Jenna are on as well, and may be able to participate by raising their hands if they have anything they wanted to add.
Any questions for Jason?
I just moved Paul Murphy into the panelist. You have control over your, I believe Paul Murphy is actually the homeowner.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yes, I'm, is my audio on?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I just want to thank Jason and Nelson for the hard work they've done, and would recommend that we approve the ADU and Nelson's jacket and tie at the same time. It's awesome.
Any questions, anybody on the commission? You picked the right night, Paul, to come see us. We're a pretty easy group tonight, only because this is so well done. If not, we'll close the.
Wayne, it looks like there's a hand raised.
We do have somebody that would like to speak in the public hearing.
Yeah, we'll now open this to the public hearing, so please go ahead and open them up.
So it will be William Swinard.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
We're the neighbors on 2nd Avenue, and we have a couple of concerns. The height considerations of this building all look fine and well when viewed from 3rd Avenue, but due to the grade of the lot, as well as the continuing grade of the whole block, it is going to be super tall and take up a lot of visual space from the other side. And we also have some concerns about the drainage problems. That whole alley to our house plot of land is pretty steeply graded, and all the water runs downhill to the point where in the winter time, if we close our garage all the way, it will freeze shut in the water. And putting another building there is covering up that much land that is now runoff instead of soaking into the ground. And we're concerned about that problem worsening.
So we'll go ahead and finish, William. We'll have a question for Nelson, but make sure. Are you finished?
No.
Not quite.
Yeah, go ahead.
The problem that I have is with more renters in the neighborhood. Hi, sorry. This is my name is Susan Masadi. I'm Bill's wife. Part of the problem I have with adding more renters in the neighborhood is that we already have a really, really highly dense neighborhood full of renters. And one of the problems that I have in the alleyway is with the apartment building that's on the corner. The renters are constantly ditching their furniture that they don't want. And it's up to my husband and I to deal with it. And because it just sort of is an eyesore on the corner of 2nd Avenue and S Street, where they ditch their furniture every couple of months, or they ditch it back in the alleyway and they never put it actually into the dumpster. And the people who own the apartment building are not really good about getting people to remove the things that are left behind. So we've been throwing couches in dumpsters and relocating bikes and just trying to do everything we can to sort of keep it a nice tidy neighborhood, I guess, just without furniture debris hanging out. And so My concern is kind of adding more renters into the neighborhood. I mean, are we going to be am I going to be moving a mattress from behind my garage every year or 6 months or whenever when they decide to get a new renter? And, you know, to speak to the drainage, I want to go back and speak to the drainage in the alleyway. I mean, there is about 3 inches of solid ice in the wintertime. And we have to have an all-wheel drive car in order just to kind of get up and down the alleyway. My husband is so bad, my husband cannot park his truck into our own garage in the wintertime because the drainage is so bad. And so my concern is that when we're going to be having these, you know, construction vehicles coming in to auger down and plumb this ADU and, you know, hook up the electricity and all that, what are they going to leave to the alleyway? I mean, it's really in bad shape. My husband and I have already filled a lot of the potholes out of our own pocket just to make it a better place. And so I know that construction vehicles are notoriously not delicate with the condition of the alleyway. And so that is kind of one of my big concerns about it, other than it being a gigantic eyesore, albeit it will be in the alleyway and hidden from the main view, but it will be kind of an eyesore.
Thank you, Swinyards, for your comments. Are there any other public comments?
I do not see, I don't have any emails that have come through, and I do not see any more hands raised. So I believe that's it.
All right, well, we're going to close this now to public comment, and we're going to meet as a commission.
Hey, Robert, would you give the applicant a chance to respond to the public comments?
Good point, Kenton. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me just say that, Jason, as the architect, maybe you could respond to, if you can respond to those comments. I would just say that the comment about renters is not really before this commission. And maybe the drainage isn't, although it'd be nice, Jason, if you could speak to the drainage issue. And of course, the height issue is before this commission. So if you could speak to that, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, that'd be great. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes.
I think somebody may need to give me permission.
Can you let him do that?
Give me just a minute here.
Yeah, because it'd be nice if you had some pictures that show the height situation with the house on 2nd Avenue. I can't see that in our packet.
Yeah, you probably don't need to.
Yeah. Okay, you guys can see now, I'm assuming, right? Yeah. I wish, first of all, Bill, thank you for your comments. I think those are terrific comments. And I wish I had done a section that goes all the way through the site, up to 2nd Avenue. And I don't have any photographs specifically. This is a Google Street image as you're looking back. And I believe this is your house, is that correct? Right there. And you can see, so this is his property. And then if I pull up on the assessor map here, so this garage right here is the one that they own. And then there's a second alley here. There's an alley here. This is the alley that's off of the Murphy's property. And then this right here is the Swinyards home. And then you've got a larger bungalow that's immediately adjacent to that. And so you can see that there are 2 alleys of separation between the home itself and where the ADU is proposed to go. However, the Swinyards garage does open directly to that alley. And, I've been back in that alley. They're absolutely right. That alley is not in good condition in terms of the surfacing there. I know that the issue of renters is not necessarily before the commission, but if it's okay for me to respond, I think the great thing about ADUs as a potential rental property is that you have the homeowner that lives right there on site, as opposed to, the apartment that they're referring to is this one. It's kind of that boxcar style apartment that's on the east side of the block. And I am aware of a lot of turnover that's gone in that specific apartment, and recognize what they're saying. Even when we were over there, I think I've seen some of the debris that's been out there. But the great thing about an ADU is that this is on the property that Paul and Jenna own. They're obviously very very careful about their property. They take great care of it, and I think the wonderful thing about the ADU ordinance is that you have the landlord that lives on that property and is their property, and presumably they're going to care about it and make sure that things are maintained to a good standard. And I think Paul and Jenna have demonstrated over the years that they absolutely do exactly that. From the water, and let me go back to the visibility shed for just a second. So if you look here at the street view that you have of 2nd Avenue, you cannot see any of the residences, even the taller ones that are up on 3rd Avenue. You know, looking from here, you know, there's a lot of trees, obviously, but you can't even see the that carriage house that it's existing. So from where we're at on 2nd Avenue, there would be zero visibility from a height standpoint of the proposed ADU. And even from their, you know, I can't say for sure from their backyard, but I think from their backyard, they would maybe just be able to see the top of it over the top of their garage. And I'd be happy to provide a site section, you know, that shows kind of what that looks like as you go all the way down to 2nd Avenue. The homes on 2nd Avenue are certainly lower than the homes on 3rd Avenue. You know, you don't see the same 2-story structures here that you do on 3rd Avenue. But again, the visibility, because of the way that hill slopes and the way the houses are set, you wouldn't even get close to seeing the ADU from the 2nd Avenue approach. As far as the drainage goes, you know, we haven't done a full civil design of this yet, but my understanding is that we are required to mitigate for any increased hard surface that we have on the property. So, you know, if we're adding a footprint essentially of 650 square feet, you know, through low impact development, we're required to retain an equivalent amount of water that would no longer be able to percolate into the site as a result of that.
So Jason, how does that alley drain right now? Does it drain to S Street?
It drains to R Street.
You have houses on streets. You've got both 3rd and 2nd Avenue. You have these large gutters that go into storm drains. But what do these alleys do that are in the mid block?
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah,
just
so
drain
those,
into yards.
let me see if I can escape back to here. So this is the block we're looking at, and I don't know if there's a way for me to annotate. You guys can see. Yeah, there we go. So this is the alley in question, and right now, I think any of these properties that are here on this side, you know, the hardscape is going to drain back into their backyards, or some of it is going to percolate and some of it's going to run into the alley. When you get to the alley here, because of the slope of this, you know, you've got a fairly significant slope going from east to west, and so you do get the water draining this way down towards R Street, where it would enter the city storm sewer system. But it's also, you know, going to drain to some degree to the south. And I imagine that this alley in the back probably is very icy when you have significant weather events in the wintertime.
Yeah, so I assume that there's been no improvements in the alley that would gutter it up so that it would get to R
That's
Street.
correct.
It's just gonna drain into backyards,
Yeah, that's correct.
garages. So to meet the percolation, I mean, to meet the drainage requirements by adding this 600 square feet, do you have like the rain gutters on it draining into the backyard as opposed to the alley? Or how's that going to be? How are you mitigating that?
Mm-hmm. So we haven't gotten that far in the design specifically, but the anticipation is we would do exactly that there would be rain gutters that would head basically with downspouts. I think we are showing downspouts on the elevations. And then we would have those downspouts go into presumably I think we can excavate some catchment basins that are gravel filled to help with the percolation. We'd have a civil engineer do the calculations on that and make sure that we're meeting that requirement.
That seems like the right answer is to have some sort of French drains there, gravel drains, where you can bring the water to the even though it's uphill, you bring it off the roof into the backyard where you have some pits like that are, you know, under the lawn. You can hide them, of course, but keep that water on their property and not draining into the alley.
It seems to me that water that normally falls in the alley, whether it's rain or snow, when it freezes, it would not have much opportunity to melt because it's to the north or in the shadow of all the buildings that are on that alley. And I don't see how the applicant could overcome that unless they shovel the alley for everyone else.
No, but at least David, they wouldn't be adding to the alley if they were draining that new property into their backyard, and what falls there, of course, falls there. And
yeah, the environmental standard requires that we mitigate for the increased impermeability, and that we don't necessarily have to address the other existing conditions.
Right. So the height limit, Jason, is the variance that it asked for, is it 3 feet? Is that, what did I see?
10 inches.
Was it, how many feet was it?
It depends on how it's, it depends on how it's classified. So it's 10 inches from the back of the property, you know, per Nelson's presentation. Per ours, we're actually about the same height, you know, from my drawing and calculations, that we're at 23 feet 10, and measured from this spot here on the back, if you go up to the ridgeline, the ridgeline is basically right at 24 feet from the backyard of the house. And let me just pull up.
Drawing C.
Yeah, I can share that as well here. Okay, so there's our section across, you know, looking across the site from the north to the south there. So from here down to right here, which is where the bottom of their backyard is, where the house is right at 24 feet. And if we look at the height above grade, it's 118 foot 6 inches. So if we're basing it off of the city sidewalk, then we're asking for a variance of about 5.5 feet in order to get to the 23 feet 10 there. If you're basing it off of the ADU ordinance and the 24 feet of the existing house is taken from the backyard, then we're not asking for any variance at all, per the ADU ordinance.
Okay.
And if I could just elaborate on that, the planning staff did have that discussion, and particularly with Joel Patterson, the zoning administrator, and we tried to make it work. His interpretation and the planning interpretation is that you can't measure it from that exact point, right at the edge of the back wall up to the ridge line.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we came very close, but in the end, the location kind of that second line to the right down to the ground is the 23 feet 10 inches.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or 23. There are too many. So it would be it doesn't technically meet the height standard and requires the special exception, but it depends on the interpretation. The official interpretation that we received back was that it needed a special exception here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with that. I think it does.
Okay. All right. Any other commissioners? Anyone have any questions for the owner or for staff before we go to closed session?
I do not.
So we'll go ahead and close the hearing and public hearing, and we're going to talk as a commission about this. Commissioners, any comments?
I have a few comments pertaining to the certificate of appropriateness. I'm just struggling. So a portion of the analysis is for the design standards for this structure. And well, I guess one, Nelson, I think you did a wonderful job, even with the technical difficulties. And your report is very thorough, and I appreciate all of the work that you've put into this proposal. However, I am having a hard time seeing how this proposal is compliant with some of these standards, as it speaks to the building form and scale. Where under that portion, it kind of talks about the character of the block. And when I'm going along that, when I've driven through that area and looked at that area, I'm not seeing these features that are being proposed. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, if any of you commissioners have seen a window such as the one proposed on the north elevation in that area. Under building character, windows are regulated. It says that windows and other openings should be incorporated in a manner that reflects the patterns in this district. And then when it speaks to roof forms under building form and scale, it states that it should incorporate the roof forms found in the block face, which obviously it's going off of the S carriage, and I appreciate that as the contributing to it, but to me, the dormers detract or modify that roof form. So I'm having like a difficult time there, as well with the facade articulation and proportions, how that speaks to it. I don't know if anyone agrees with me. This is what I spend all day doing, so I'm like in that same headspace.
Aiden, when you're talking about the north windows, that's the one where you walk up the stairs and it's all glass on the left side and on the east side?
Yes, Robert, it's the angular window, whereas I'm in all of the garages in the back structures that we were showed, all of them have the historic ratios, the 2-to-1 ratio that's typically seen in this district. They're of human scale. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So let me ask Nelson this: is there anything in the city code or standards that give any sort of break on that issue when it's facing in the backyard? I mean, we haven't had a lot of experience with these ancillary buildings, but it's obviously just facing their own backyard and really not open to anybody else to see. Is there any room for movement on that, or is the same standards apply that Aiden's referring to?
Well, we kind of struggled with that same issue, to be honest, in terms of we felt like this structure was large enough in scale and significant enough that we shouldn't be reviewing it just as an accessory structure. And so we use the standards for new construction, which ordinarily wouldn't be used if you were just looking at a basic accessory structure approval. Here, where it was 2 stories, it also has the accessory dwelling unit. We decided to head that route. That said, the design guidelines actually, I totally understand what Aiden is saying, and the design guidelines call for new, like a modernistic interpretation of traditional styles. We felt like here, what was proposed is, in terms of the basic shapes, the form of the structure is very similar to that S Street carriage house and other outbuildings that you can see throughout the avenues. The windows, they're vertically oriented, at least the ones that are visible. Those windows on the north side, like I said, the effect is mitigated to some degree by their facing the subject property, the existing single family home and the owner's home on the property. You know, but certainly that's something that we leave up to the commission in determining, you know, whether those things are totally appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Aidan correctly identified some of the ways this building is different from the other structures along the alley, but I'd like to make some points in support of this design. One is that the other structures are not intended for human habitation. And just naturally, you'd like to have more daylight, better visibility. By virtue of its location behind the primary house, and it's not going to be seen in context from the streetscape, I think it's entirely appropriate for this to take a modern approach to the design. I think it would be a little disappointing if it hadn't been a modern representation. So I think there's a good reason the applicant and his architect went the direction they did, and I'd support it.
Thank you, Kenton. Other commissioners?
But I would like to kind of said.
Mike, can you turn that up a little?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's better.
All right. So I want to echo what Kenton just said, and I appreciate what Aidan was indicating in that, you know, it's clear that the vocabulary of the homes on the street versus what this ADL is proposing are really different. But they're in different places and they're in different visibilities. If this was visible from you know, any of the streets, you know, we might all have a different response. But because it's in the middle of the block and it's not seen from the major front streets, then I think then it's a new ball game, and it can be whatever it wants to be. So while I think it's a little surprising, but I don't find it disturbing that it's different than the architecture of what you see on the major streets. It seems to be appropriate as an ADL unit.
Thank you, Mike. John?
Yeah, I'm with Mike and Kenton on this one. I appreciate what you said, Aidan. I think it's good food for thought because we're going to see a lot of ADUs with the revised ordinance coming through in historic districts and throughout the city. But I visited the site this afternoon. Sorry to if the residents were inside. I wasn't trying to look into your house, but I was definitely trying to see if I could see from the sidewalk down to the site, and I really couldn't, even when I was, you know, trying really hard. It's way down there, and there's only so much. It's tight, obviously, because it's an avenue. So I agree with what Kenton said, and to me, it's kind of similar to how we give a little more leeway on a tertiary facade on new construction, because it's not visible from the right of way. So, you know, we usually give a little more leeway to side and rears of new construction and additions to historic buildings. And so that's kind of the test for me in this case, is actually the north facade is kind of the back and of the ADU. And I think overall the design is handsome, and it's made of high quality materials, and just it's pretty simple form that doesn't draw a lot of attention to itself.
Thank you, John. Any other comments, commissioners?
There was one other comment
Richardson here.
concerning the drainage. And it feels like that with the hip roof, I think if my directions are correct, that you're draining the roof to the east and to the west. If the on the east side is the additional parking area, if that can be sloped to mitigate, adding to the drainage into the alley, that I think that would be appropriate. On the west side, it looks like that's grass or permeable area, so that can be designed to gather water from the roof as well and mitigate it as much as possible from getting into the alley. I think what was said earlier, I forget who it was, but once water is in the alley is, and I drove it as well, the alley is a little rough. It is shaded by the buildings that are on the north side of the alley, so all along the alley, I can see in the wintertime, it's going to ice up. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments? David Richardson, you're really not going to make a comment?
Yeah, I got something to say. I'm not going to address things that the Landmarks Commission doesn't really have a purview on, but I would like to note that this is a large lot in a small building, and that the 19th century carriage house on the east end of the alleyway rather, I think really helps for the precedent for the height of this building. It is quite high for an accessory building in the avenues, but the carriage house really helps with that. And when I visited the site today, I couldn't see any issues, or visualize any issues with the view corridors of the buildings that are to the north of this. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other comments? If not, it'd be appropriate to have a motion. Let me just say that to David's point, we've talked about drainage because I think it was brought up by neighbors and we've talked about it, but it isn't really before us. That'll be something addressed by the city and the building permit and approval process. And it sounds like like Jason, the architect, is on top of the requirements there. So we're just addressing the height and the other issues that are within our jurisdiction. And so with that being said, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll be glad to make a motion.
Thank you, Babs.
Let's see. 1076 3rd Avenue motion sheet, PLNHLC 2020-00615. COA for new construction, accessory structure and rear yard, garage and ADU at 1076 3rd. PLNHLC 2021-00111, special exception request for an ADU that exceeds a maximum allowed height. Based on the analysis and findings listed in the staff report, the information presented and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the commission approves petition PLNHLC 2020-00615, which is the request for a certificate of appropriateness for the new construction of an accessory structure in the rear yard that contains a garage and accessory dwelling unit, and petition PLNHLC 2021-00479, which is a request for special exception to a permit structure that exceeds the maximum permitted height with the following direction. 1, approval of all final design details, including specific direction expressed by the commission, shall be delegated to the planning staff.
Richardson seconds.
Thank you. Babs,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Aiden,
Yes.
Kenton,
Yes.
Victoria,
She left the meeting.
David,
Aye.
and Michael.
Yes.
So that motion is approved. Thank you very much. Good luck with the addition.
I had a question though, having sold many of these over the years with the carriage houses, it's very interesting. I'd asked the owners, does the carriage house inside still smell like hay? They often do. I just wondered.
So I've been in that carriage house actually, and it does a little bit on the main level. And then they've got, I think, artist lofts upstairs that that you don't notice as much. But yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
that's crazy that it would last, 100 years.
That's really cool, Jason, that your family was there
Yeah.
for a century ago and you've returned.
What's crazy is that reading my great grandfather's history, his dad purchased that property by trading a suit of clothes for it. And imagine if we could do
No
that.
way. That's awesome.
Anyway, well, thank you, everybody.
So we've seen a little appreciation in our house prices.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We will now move on to the Thistle Avenue, 26 Thistle Avenue. And you again, Nelson.
Yes, and I apologize for not paying attention so much. I've been frantically trying to get my presentation back, and then in lieu of that, I've thrown something together. So let's see. It's not going to be all that complete. I'm having to wing it.
Okay, we've got your staff report in front of us. So
yeah. Do I have the, am I able to share?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's telling me I have things open that are not.
Nelson, is your presentation somewhere that we can get to it? Oh, there you go. It's starting to share now.
It's starting now.
Okay, I'm gonna have to work off the staff report. This is a request by Gary Knapp of KZW Architects. He's requesting approval for new construction of a 3-story triplex at this lot located on Thistle Avenue, which is between 11th East, Elizabeth Street, 2nd South, and 3rd South. It is an odd shaped lot, as you can see here. And hopefully you're seeing a staff report.
Yes.
Okay.
Is Thistle Avenue a public road?
It is a private right-of-way.
Okay.
You can see the existing site conditions here. Once again, we're dealing with topography. Very steep in this case. This abuts the Wasatch Fault line. And so to the east of the lot line, you can see how it rises very, very significantly. And that's kind of dictated the layout of that lot. Going back into the Sanborn maps, it shows back even going into the early 1900s, that lot was configured that way and really hasn't changed since. The building on the lot dates from before 1898, but it's also been very, very substantially changed. I included a lot of information, possibly too much in the staff report about a determination that a previous landmark commission made in 2015 when the University Historic District was designated. Or excuse me, not designated, but resurveyed. And the commission was looking at the findings of that survey. There was a property owner at the time came in and talked about all of the changes that had been done. Those are, there was artificial siding put on the sides. The windows, most of the openings had been changed out. And you can see here that the deterioration has only accelerated since that 2015 determination. So that's one of the issues here. There is a process for determining or for getting approval for a non-contributing structure where we notify all of the property owners within 85 feet and give them 12 days to register any sort of comment or ask the planning director to take this to the Historic Landmark Commission for further determination of the non-contributing status. Here we feel like that's fairly obvious. You can see other photos in the staff report that show that. That was key issue number one. The second is the proposal for the design. I'm going to jump ahead here. You can see the building there that's on the site. That notice was mailed out, and it would end tomorrow, based on the postmark date that I ended up receiving. This is the entrance to Thistle Avenue. You can see some of the surrounding buildings. There is it's got a very interesting streetscape. Most of these buildings were originally determined to be non-contributing in the district when it was created in 1995. They were outside the historic period at the time. Since then, those buildings have been, when it was resurveyed in 2015, those were determined to be contributing. They meet the age requirements. The building on the right here dates, I think, from early 50s. And then you have the Crest apartment that's located here in the background, and that dates from 1963, I believe. More photos showing the site. You can see this condominium complex here. That's the most significant building that's visible, and adjacent to the building that just by doing takeoffs from the drawings that were supplied, it's about 28 feet from that lot line there. I'll call it the east lot line. This is another shot of that Crest Apartments. So in looking at the design of this building, we felt like it's appropriate to look at the surrounding structures. They were all determined contributing. So the blockiness, the materials, the arrangement on the proposed building, it is similar to this one, and yet also takes into account the design guidelines. Let me forward to those. You can see here more on the south, the lot. There's some trees. There may be some questions regarding the trees there. That's where the two property lines on each side join at the corner, basically in the vicinity of that corner of that property. That's where the slope, the grade starts increasing significantly, as you can see. So, this building would be about 35, it's an RMF 35 zone. Maximum height is 35 feet. But because of the slope, there's not a whole lot of impact that it's going to have on the views or the vicinity within that property, the condominiums upslope to the east. Again, you can see the slope there and the condominiums. If I can move here to the narrative, the materials. Here you can see the site plan. They've oriented it along that hypotenuse of the triangle, and because of the way the zoning ordinance treats a property like this, that's a side yard setback. In this zone, it has to be 5 feet, or excuse me, it has to be 10 feet. Because of the way the property is sited and the way that they can get access to the building, they've requested a decreased setback there. That's one of the special exceptions for 5 feet on that side. The 10-foot setback on the other side, on the west side, is maintained, and the front yard setback, 20 feet, is maintained as well. This is the surrounding context. You can again see the photographs, and here is an elevation. This is the proposed elevations. The front kind of faces, I would say northwest, I guess. And you see the 3-story structure. The garage is below with the living space above. The materials are primarily concrete, or a concrete composition, party plank siding, or likewise, and then a different color of siding. The windows, we push them to put some additional windows in the design, make that more regular, and then the front of the property here, which is this left side elevation, that was fairly blank, more like that right side elevation as shown on the drawing here. They added the additional window there. In our recommendations, we recommend that they add an additional element on that corner to distinguish that more as the primary entrance to the building. See if I can get. So site plan wise, the other special exception is they are not shown on this drawing, but they have proposed balconies on the rear of each apartment. Those would be 3 feet deep, so they'd protrude into the setback 3 feet. That ordinarily wouldn't be allowed. We feel it gives it a little more variation on the front facade, or on that facade, to have those balconies there and the windows, and it provides an amenity to the residents there. It's really fairly mitigated by again by the topography, the steep slope on that side. We discussed and looked at several different arrangements on this property for this proposed building and other configurations of this building. And just because it's such a weird lot, getting a driveway there and getting a building onto that lot is complex to meet all of the width requirements for the driveways, and at the same time creating something that is meets the base zoning and would allow for multifamily residential on this lot. So what we have here is we've brought, and I'm going to see if I can zip right back up to the recommendations here. There's a lot fuller analysis in the staff report, but our recommendation would be that you would approve the request for the certificate of appropriateness and the 2 special exception requests with the following 6 conditions. One is that the landscaping plan needs to be revised. We need to get a distinct pedestrian entrance from Thistle Avenue that's separate from the proposed driveway, and then breaking up that visual and physical impact of the the concrete driveway that's already proposed. It could do that with more landscaping, permeable paving, something similar that would add more green space. That we haven't gotten a whole lot of detail on the windows, and so on the front facade there, we're adding the condition that they'd be recessed. That's contained in the design guidelines in various in various places. And the windows need to be a material that is compatible or acceptable for the historic district, and that will create that depth that we need in a new construction. The synthetic stucco or stucco panels that were initially proposed will not be utilized as an exterior building material. They could use a real cement stucco where the synthetic stucco is proposed. The fiber cement siding that is recommended should be a smooth finish. And as I mentioned, that on that corner closest to Thistle Avenue, we'd work with them to get an entry feature to make that entrance more prominent. And then if you choose to, you could delegate those details to staff. And again, I apologize for the technical issues. And if there are more questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm guessing that there will be more.
So, commissioners, does anyone have any questions before we hear from Nelson, before we hear from the applicant?
I have one. Was there a work session before I was on the commission, or is this the first we've heard of this proposal?
This is the first we've heard of this proposal.
It seems like typically there with a development of this size, there would be a work session. Is there any particular reason there isn't in this case?
The sequencing for this was a little weird, and so we're trying to cut them a break, so to speak. They submitted for building permits and then received their initial zoning review comments, and that's when they found out they were in a historic district. And so we decided to bring it to you because they're so far along in the process. At the same time, tabling this would always be an option if you wanted to discuss it.
So John, when I got on the commission, we didn't have study sessions at that time, and people were coming in and with the first time like this, and we were making a lot of comments, and so we were tabling it so they wouldn't have to reapply, and they were coming back again. So it ended up working like a study session, and we can always, it has the effective one. We started doing study sessions on at least bigger projects, just so we would make it easier logistically. You know, it didn't have to be a public hearing, just come in and tell us what you're doing. We'll tell you what we think. And so you know, this one I kind of see can fall in between either one, but it is what it is today. So if we want to, we'll see what our comments are. We can always give the same comments we would give at a study session and ask them to come back. So.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. It feels like there's some pretty key details that aren't being considered yet, like window materials and details and all that.
That's the kind of thing we'll talk about. So before we do that, let's hear from the applicant.
It's like the applicant is Gary Knapp. Do you want to present something? Show your screen tonight?
I may want to actually.
Yeah.
That would be all right.
That might be a good plan in this case.
Okay, great. Let me see here. Okay, can you see my screen okay? Can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. So one of the things that and thank you, Nelson. I really appreciate all the work and appreciate working with you through this process with this. So we're really grateful for you. One thing I wanted to show here, just looking at Thistle Street as we're considering this and kind of considering the way that we're facing the building and so forth, is if you look at the end here, it doesn't go through to Elizabeth Street. So it kind of ends right here. And the entrance that we're proposing goes in right here. And really, from this location, the only people that will probably drive along here are there's some parking across here on this building next to it that could maybe see our building, but really most people will see it from this location. And if you look at this right here, where you'd be looking at it from, it does look like you'd be seeing primarily the front. Even if you're looking straight this way, you'd pretty much be looking at the front of the building. And so to get back over there, just to kind of show you here, put it into context, to get over to this area where the grade starts to go up over here, you're not going to be able to see that side run an angle. You'll still be able to see the entire front of the building. So that's one of the things I thought would just point out, that really the way we did end up orienting this building is so that from Thistle Street, you'd pretty much see the front of the building, because on this back part from about here on, you can't go anyway. No one's going to be driving by and so forth. And originally the developer who is on here too, and he may have some comments too, his name is Mike Colligan. He wanted to do 4 units, but realizing that there were some other, just the difficult building size because of the setbacks and everything, we switched it to 3, and he wanted to be able to let residents be able to park. And we got 2 car garages in each unit and made some nicer, bigger units for this area. The other challenge with this area is when you're looking at the type of structures that are here right now, they're all multifamily. And so someone that wanted to maybe put a single family lot, it'd kind of be awkward in this location. And so I think putting in a multifamily, a townhome unit really makes sense here, where it can kind of be part of that street and what's going on along that street. One of the other things I wanted to point out is we don't necessarily show those windows exactly, but we are recessing all of our windows back. If you can kind of see here, we put it back there 10 inches. And so they really are recessed and have a nice feature that pushes and gives it some of that depth that I think you guys are looking for in the windows. Now we're happy to definitely recess them and do some other things more if you guys would like. We're definitely willing to look at that. As far as the other details, talking about we're happy doing, and we did put that in our thing that we would do a smooth finish. We also are going to do the hard stucco. That's the plan that we put in after Nelson told us about that. We put that in the plan that way. And if we want to on this side, put in another, this is the entrance. We could put an entry here. Again, my thought is, as you look at this building and how you're going to see it from Thistle, really this is the angle. It's going to be about like here. And to see this side, you're going to have to go clear up at the very edge where you can't even drive because it's not a through street. So you're probably really not going to even be able to see this side much. But we are definitely willing to put in an entry feature if that's a condition that you guys want to put on the approval process. We are willing to work with that and put a front facade on there. The other parts of this, we do think that this is a very beautiful building, especially when you consider all the buildings along there and what this has to offer. I think this will be really nice for this street going up it. And because some of those other buildings are a little you know, and they don't have fronts. And one of the things I did want to point out is just the landscape that we'll be able to provide here, where this side has no landscape whatsoever. I really think it will help to beautify this area and make this look like a much nicer street and project, especially when you kind of consider what's here. There's so much hardscape everywhere, you know, really is lacking some nice landscape. And this is just kind of overgrown right now, but once we get done with it, it will look really nice and have a nice building there that I think will be good. And definitely the scale compared to the other buildings is the same, and we're meeting most of the other historical context. I do apologize if we don't have anything straight about the windows, but we're happy to have that as part of a condition to get those more in line with the historic that we're looking at there. The last thing that I really want to touch on is just that looking, you know, the rear of the building is back here, and in this zone, the rear setback is 5 feet. And I know that technically we only have 3 sides, so it is a side, but that is where we're saying, hey, it is 5 feet. There's just a big hill right back here. So pulling it back, you know, a little closer so that we have enough room to get driveways into these areas, and also putting some nice balconies out there where it's not going to affect anyone else because there's just a big hill back here. I think would be a really nice feature, and we, you know, really appreciate the consideration on those as we talk about this. I think that's all that I have, and I don't know if the owner, Mike Colgan, he might want to say something also, but I think that's what I have. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions, if you don't. Yeah. If you could zoom away from this or back just a little bit, there you go. So along Thistle and from the views that we're seeing, are any of the existing trees going to be maintained? And are you looking at adding some vegetation, some trees along Thistle, since you're pulling your building away from that street?
They look like elm trees, like we shouldn't have those trees.
Yeah, the old Chinese elms. Yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely are looking at putting some trees along here. We weren't planning on keeping, except along this area right here. I think we are considering and have not fully decided yet, but on keeping some of these trees along here. If you want to just look at it right here, we have some trees along the property line here that we very well may keep. We haven't fully decided that yet, but I do think we'll add a couple of trees along here, along with the grass and the other things that we'll have there that I think will add to the feeling of the street and get some greenery. I know you got all these huge trees back here, but it kind of makes down here with all this hardscape just plain, and I know we have a little bunch here, but it kind of is on its own little island there. I think it'll look nice to have some other landscape and trees along here.
Any other comments, David?
Yeah, I have a question for the applicant. It's not exactly a landmarks related question, but this isn't far from my office, and I've looked at this lot myself. And I wonder have you performed a surface fault rupture study?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you.
Tell us what that is, David.
Well, there are areas of the city that are designated fault zones, and prior to issuance of a building permit, the owner, applicant, whatever, needs to have a geotechnical report done where typically a backhoe goes onto the site and digs a trench that's 8 or more feet deep. A geologist analyzes the trench to see if we can see evidence of fault rupture along these fault lines. And the reason for that is twofold. One is that, of course, if there is a fault line there, it's not a good place to build a building. And the other is that it gives us as a city and as a state more geological information about exactly where the fault is surfacing.
So
Fascinating. I've gone through this on many projects, and it's not particularly expensive, but it takes a little bit of time and is hugely enlightening.
Thank you. And we have ordered a site-specific seismic hazard report, and maybe that's the similar thing. But the city was requiring that as one of our comments, and so we are in the process of getting the site-specific seismic hazard report. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, and that's part of it. They'll drill holes, they'll do several other things, but that should be part of it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Is there any public comment?
Yeah, we do have some public comments.
Okay.
Are you opening the public hearing now?
Yes, let's go ahead and open the public hearing.
Okay, first I'll call on John Wood. Go ahead, Mr. Wood.
Thank you. Thanks to the committee for letting us chime in here. I am representing what's referred to in the application as the boxcar eightplex directly west of the site. And we, in general, want to, if anything, in this public forum, welcome Mike Hulligan and Gary Knapp and all the effort they're putting into developing this site directly east of our property or eightplex. That said, if they could in some way consider communicating in a more direct fashion with us in particular, my number is 801-230-9839, and I'd love to say it 100 more times. I'm actually a river guide by trade. I live within 200 yards of this building. My wife and I manage 21 units within 200 yards of our home that is just directly east of this building. We care deeply about this neighborhood. Making personal contact with us with your plans would provide great neighborly support. I know this is not the exact meaning of this forum. I feel like they've put a ton of effort to put forward a great idea to Landmarks for what is a problematic little pie-shaped piece in the middle of our neighborhood here. I have no objections to the minor changes in setback and allowance. I feel like they've looked appropriately at setbacks from our property. And in terms of the driveway entrance, et cetera, off Thistle, all make good sense to us as a neighbor. I'm just asking them as good neighbors to reach out to us, talk to us on the phone. Hell, we're post-COVID. We're willing to talk to you at distance at this point. But let's not do it in this more formal, rather cryptic session anymore. I do have many questions regarding surface water that needs to travel to Thistle and perhaps down to 11th East. I have many questions to them regarding their bringing utilities to their site. Those utilities currently, a couple actually pass under our property at 247 South 11th East. And we're hoping that those utilities could just be carried in the more natural corridor as they are improved to support this 3 townhouse development. So it's really just me using you all as an open forum to invite them to do it old school a little bit and contact the neighbors and the owners that are going to be their neighbors, and you may get a great reply or report.
That's
it's been a little frustrating. otherwise. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
But
Are there any other public comments?
But before we leave that one, can I get the rest of John's phone number again? This is Mike Culligan. I'm sorry. I got 801-230.
9839, and yeah, we can talk about it and make the construction phase low impact, etc. Appreciate you speaking up there, Mike. Thank you.
Absolutely. I will give you a call. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
So we'll.
Okay, we do have some more.
Oh, we do. Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
we do. Next is Cindy Cromer.
Hi, I hadn't expected to comment on this, but I'm familiar with the site under previous owners' tutelage when the issue of the contributory status was considered. This is one of the few historic buildings in town that I would not walk into. It is an extremely hazardous structure because of the alterations that were made to it without permits. Under an owner sometime in the past. I share Commissioner Richardson's concern about the setback from the fault that I think is going to be required. And I'm concerned that that may precipitate additional changes to the site plan because that information is not in front of you. This is purely aesthetic, but this is a very minimalist streetscape with very mid-century modern buildings, and I find this facade cluttered and not sympathetic to the surrounding minimalist buildings. And that's a personal call. The trees on the west property line appear to be catalpas based on their seed pods that are dangling down, but the screens were going past very fast. But I don't think we're talking about exclusively what are known as trash trees on this site. I do think I saw a catalpa. Thanks.
Thank you. Someone else?
Yeah, we do have.
So I'm going to read that one.
Yes, please.
Okay, so there was one that we received an email after the meeting started from Oscar Arvizu. I apologize if I said your name incorrectly. Here's the comment. The proposal for a triplex in the lot in question is not only too small for something that large, but also blocks the passage of deer that cross there in the winter from north to south and vice versa. It would also butt up against a known fault line next to it with other taller apartment complexes above on the edge. This is very concerning on many levels. We need more open space, not more apartment complexes in downtown SLC. During World War II, that space in front of the old house there now was a victory garden. Why can't the city put in open space or a community garden for the wildlife that crossed there? The thought of cramping a bunch of apartments there now, instead of making it open space for the neighborhood, reeks of greed on the developers and the city that will go along with the proposed plan. Please keep this historical area open and consider something that will benefit the neighborhood instead of a development company. We are not in New York with such a limited amount of space where they need to build another apartment complex. There is much more space around the city. Please plant trees or leave as open space for the betterment of the city and the wildlife that use the space. It is very rare you can see herds of deer living and crossing houses in a major city. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you.
And Oscar is the neighbor who lives next to the site in question.
Okay, any other comments, public comments?
Mr. Chair, we received an email. I'm not sure if, I believe it came in a week ago, but I'm not sure if you received it in your packet. So I'd like to read it just to make sure that it's on record. This is from Lewis Francis. Mr. Knight, I am an adjoining property owner for this proposed project. I looked at the plans for the intended 3-story, 3 townhomes on that pizza slice parcel. I'm curious if anyone actually looked at this site. Parcel is narrow, sandwiched between existing homes and very steep on the back part, going up the hill to Elizabeth Street, and the existing condo units on piers directly above it. It's also right on the earthquake fault line, same elevation as Fault Line Park. There may also be issues with access to the property. The current alley access is in very poor condition. While I'm not opposed to something new going in there, it needs to take account of the property location, contours, drainage, and access. Thank you for your consideration of these comments. That, I believe, is the last of the comments that we received.
Great, thank you. Well, now, let's see, does the applicant want to respond to any of the comments?
Yeah, maybe just to say that we're happy and grateful John Wood reached out. We got his number. We're definitely planning to reach out to him and have good conversations there. And then as far as these other ones, definitely removing that building and putting something on there, we believe will definitely improve where this lot and this street, as it has been that way for quite a few years right now. And we believe that this will be a great project that will beautify the area, and that, you know, essentially we just appreciate the opportunity for your consideration for approval on this project.
This is Mike Culligan. I will add one other point. We have worked pretty hard in this design process to minimize disruptions to landscape and vegetation. The whole point of the triangle to the south of the building is staying as a vegetative area. That is where we have seen deer droppings, is in the far point corner there. But the structure is dilapidated. It is a condemned structure. We believe that this is quite an improvement to the area, yet still keeps with the theme of similar materials to neighboring properties, and we believe is a good look. But thank you for your consideration.
Okay, we'll close the public comment and now meet as a commission. Commissioners, comments on the application? We might start with John. We might start with what people think it's not. If any of you feel it's not ready yet for approval because of design or other criteria, let's talk about what those are.
Yeah, I do kind of think we're rushing it a bit. That's just my hunch. It feels like I'm going back to some of the stuff Cindy Cromer said, because I think that's really good input, that the surrounding buildings have a mid-century modern vibe to them, and they were built in the mid-century, and they're contributing buildings. So I think the design should probably be a little bit more complementary to those buildings. A lot of the new construction and historic district guidelines stress that there should be some language between nearby contributing buildings. And I feel like the design at this point to me is pretty generic. Like, it could be in any part of the city. It's not really site specific. So that's kind of my hesitation there. I was expecting to come in and say we should save that house, but after hearing how bad it is on the inside, I guess I'm backing off on that a little bit.
I would totally agree with that mid-century modern vibe. Like, it wouldn't be that difficult to change the windows out to be of a more mid-century commercial looking 3-pane windows like you see downtown on the old police high-rise. What was that? The phone building at one point. Anyway,
Northwest Pipeline, yeah.
yeah. That's a perfect example of mid-century windows on that building. But the thing that really I don't mind the density. The thing that bothers me the most, that is really curious, is that this is right on a fault line. So I think that's the most important thing right now, is for them to find out how doable this is. So I think a little more study before we go back to voting on this.
Robert, this is Mike Villa. I feel exactly the same way that I know the geotechnical has been started, but when the fault rupture zones are going to be delineated, they may change this plan drastically, because you're going to have to move the buildings away from that zone. Once they do, and triangular sites are interesting sites, they're really, really tough to work with. If you start taking, the fault zone from the right end of Thistle Avenue and start, drawing lines of what you have to stay away from, it's pushing everything towards the left, and that starts to get problematic very quickly. So I think, and that's outside of our purview. I understand that, but I agree with John that I think that there's not enough information to say, yes, this is the plan. Let's go ahead and because I think there's some things the applicant needs to have in their pocket to know with some assurity that this plan is actually going to be able to move forward.
Yeah. So Hannah, are you here?
I am.
So is it the business of the city in getting a building permit to deal with the fault line, and it doesn't feel like Mike, you said, it doesn't feel like this is in our jurisdiction, and
I have an observation to that end, and that is that this is an ironic thing, but if indeed this is sitting on an active fault, or the surface of that active fault, about the only thing that can happen to the property would be to restore the POS building that's there. And that all of a sudden the existing historic building will have great value because it's there, it's existing, and perhaps could have an addition to it. It's certainly not the highest and best use of the property, but it's an ironic outcome of where we are geologically.
And Robert, you asked whether the city would have some stake in this, and when the developer does present their final construction documents, their plans for review and permitting, they have to submit a full set of structural calculations and designs that will be reviewed. And it's reviewed by typically a consulting structural engineer. And if they don't feel like it will work for this site, they'll also want to see all the geotechnical information. So this will definitely become part of the process, even if it isn't our purview. That said,
that's my point. Is that we shouldn't be complicating whether we approve the design of this and this new construction, should we? If it's based on, we shouldn't be holding that up. For a lot of reasons, but not this one.
Au contraire, mon frère. I don't know how they got this far on the design without knowing what the structural ramifications are. That's a pre-design investigation. I think they've done a fine job of citing this building. I like the idea of them putting it here. I commend the developer for attempting this, but it seems like they're getting the cart ahead of the horse. You got to know what the structural situation is in the faults before you can design a building. Now, setting that aside, I think I agree with what others have said. This building, the design of this building, it doesn't really know what it wants to be yet. It's kind of cluttered. It's saying a number of different things. I think it needs to be simplified and clarified. And it could follow the mid-century modern that people have noted, or it could be something else. But right now it's a lot of things, and it needs to be just one clean statement.
This is Hannah. I will just note that there is a special exception for the reduction in setbacks. I do see how the concerns raised with respect to the fault line may change the location on the site, which may impact setbacks. I think the intent of this group reviewing it is not necessarily to do an analysis regarding the seismic activity, but I do think that this group is right in acknowledging that the two sort of need to be coordinated together with the plan. And I think that's the concern raised today. But yeah, setbacks are pending before this body.
So maybe I can say it in a different way. You know, Ken and Mike or Dave, I think we legally could go ahead and decide if we were ready to approve it. I don't think we're ready to on its design criteria, but if we were, if they turn around and then get turned down because of seismic on their building permit, then they design something new and they're back before us. So forget legal, and just from a practical standpoint, it'd be nice to not have us go through all the brain damage of analyzing and giving feedback and bringing this back again if it's just going to end up changing in its location or its design because of seismic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that,
yeah?
Are we kind of on the same page on that?
Yeah, even without structural, I wouldn't be ready to approve this as it stands.
Yeah, we don't approve building structures, but certainly the architectural observations tonight are germane to the application.
Yeah.
Well, can I reinforce that a little bit? I'm looking at in the staff report, page 63 at 5A, building character. I think that's the standard that to me jumps out the most that I think could use a little more development. It's just saying the design reflects patterns of articulation and proportion established in the historic context of the block face. So whether we agree or not on the historic significance of the surrounding apartment buildings, they've been identified as contributing structures to the historic district at this point. So I think, you know, it talks about rhythm of openings, proportion and scale of openings, ratio of wall to openings, balconies, porches, and external stairs. Those are some of the considerations that I think should be more reflective of the surrounding patterns in the block. So just to provide some concrete thoughts on the design and how it relates to the guidelines. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
So we're not going to approve this. Thus, what's the protocol here? We send it back for review.
I think that's probably the right thing to do. Is that's up to the applicant. We can turn down their petition, but if the applicant's of a mind to, if they would like us to, we could just table it and let them come back. The fact is, it may be a whole new application if they have to relocate. But let's table it and ask them to finalize the seismic situation with the city, and so that they're bringing us something that's not going to be an issue with.
Okay, so I move to table.
So, like, would the applicant, John or whoever's speaking, John, would you like to say something about that?
Did you say the applicant?
Yeah.
So this is Mike Culligan. I'm happy to allow this to be tabled. I feel like I'm caught in a catch-22. If we're tabling this because of seismic issues and the geotech study points that there are none, then I've been tabled for no reason for a structural issue that should be the city staff to determine, but shouldn't really be the subject of this meeting. But if that's what I have to do, then I'm I'm happy to do that. It's
Well,
a frustration for me.
No,
I'm going to speak to that for a minute, and I understand the frustration with that. If this is tabled, it would be tabled for architectural reasons that we've discussed, and the structure just happens to be a sideline.
So
We can't table this based
we're
on.
just trying. We're gonna ask you to go, Mike, and go back and make some changes on the architecture, but in the meantime, I guess we've asked you to address this other. You're telling me you already have addressed the seismic and already been told that that's not a problem?
No, I'm telling you that in our interactions with the city building department, we have already engaged a civil engineer to determine whether there is or is not an issue. From the preliminary studies that we've undergone, we don't believe there is an issue. So I guess I owe you an apology. I was misunderstanding the comments to be that we're tabling this because of a seismic issue that may never be an issue, which I didn't think we were here for. If we're tabling this for architectural reasons, then that's definitely within your purview. Just please be specific as to what you're looking for so that we can get back in quickly.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's table it for that, but let's finish by giving Mike the input like we would in a study session about what we'd like to see changed architecturally. And then we'd ask you, Mike, if you want to try to run your civil engineer and the rest of that to ground, just so that, look, you can come back prematurely before that's done, and we will have to address that. I mean, we'll have to address, we only have the jurisdiction over what we have jurisdiction over. So you could do that. We're just suggesting that we not end up ended up coming back twice, two more times, because you come back once and then your civil engineer and the city get done and decide you do have to do something seismically and redesign, then we've wasted our time. So it'd be nice if you could do both of those things before you come back to us again, although we understand we only have jurisdiction over one of those two things. That makes sense?
That's reasonable. Yeah, we're already doing that for the city anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. So everybody on the commission, do we have any other comments and feedback on the architecture of this building?
If I could jump in really quick, if you make a motion to table it, I would encourage you to provide some good direction with that motion and what the applicant should consider doing.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We're going to give you in tabling it. We're going to give you our. It's not going to go in the. It's not going to go in any sort of emotion. It's just going to be feedback you get right now on what we want to see. What we might like to see you address. We can't tell you how to design your place, but we can give you feedback on things we might want to see changed. So with those on the commission that have any comments about, massing, windows, whatever it is we want to talk about, let's give that feedback.
As we discussed, I think it would be helpful to have that exterior perspective looking at it from the northwest angle. There we go, perfect, right on. Spot on. And I think there's been some great architectural comment, and I'm going to defer to the architects that had great comments here.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you clearly, but I think I would like to talk about specifically the the mid-century modern and some of these details, like, so we can connect with this building. Obviously there's some charm here with some of the things there, and I do see that the windows are set back, but it is kind of just a block building, all one material and so forth. And the other building is also just one main material, and is that kind of what you guys are wanting to see, so that it looks more like that?
Well, the courtyard of the building we're looking at right now is a little bit more interesting than its backside. Yeah, we do have a good gulag view there.
Well, and I know in past applications, we've had some pretty fully fleshed out architectural renderings. I think that would be more helpful, at least on my end, than just orbiting through a Revit model. That doesn't give us a very tactile sense of the actual materiality of the building. And I don't know if it has to be like a it doesn't have to be itself a mid-century modern building block, but my question is like, what can you learn from those buildings that would be a little bit more contextual? Like you said, it is just one material, and in comparison to this elevation, which has a handful of colors and articulations and textures, like maybe it is a simpler facade. What can you learn about from other mid-century modern historic apartment buildings in the city? Well, I guess drawing from precedents that are surrounding the building, but also similar historic examples.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can do, like you guys said, recess the windows. I think that's definitely something that we could do, especially because we had 2 or 3 comments that said they want it to be similar to the buildings on the block. And we definitely do. We do have brick. I know, and this is more of a rendering if you wanted to see kind of with the trees and the landscape and that.
Yeah,
one of the things they said is originally we did have this stone on there. And Nelson kind of said, no, we don't want stone in this district. So we did change that to brick. And we could definitely put some more brick down at the base and kind of help with that. I think that would give it a little bit more feel. But besides doing some of those things, getting some brick and recessing the windows, at least compared to these other buildings that are there, I do struggle on seeing exactly what else we could do. So if you could help maybe on that grounds of what you think we maybe could do to make it feel more like have more connection to the other buildings.
Yeah, I'll try to weigh in on that. This, especially with this rendering, which is helpful to see it a little bit more in a little more realistically. There's an awful lot going on. It seems busy without a formula or an organizing concept for all the things that are going on. It seems like it's got a number of different things that are put on in an attempt to make it more interesting, but it just makes it more complicated and less coherent. I think modern design, mid-century modern, has a simplicity, a clarity to it that you might want to consider. There are references in this to a lot of different things that are going on in contemporary architecture as well as traditional architecture that I don't think can cohabit very well together. So I think, piggybacking on what John was saying, I'd urge you to look at some good examples of classic modern architecture, mid-century modern, see how they deal with row houses, triplexes, small assemblages of buildings, and see how that might translate here. No, those are vague, kind of sounds like a design studio discussion, but I also don't want to get into telling you, well, that window proportion should be, you're not following the golden section, or, I want to stay away from that, but just kind of suggest you look at some of the historical precedents and see how that might be applied to your building here.
Yeah, definitely.
If
go ahead. Sorry.
If I could follow on to what Kenton just said, honestly, like my perspective is that the solid to void ratio is it feels off, in part because there's kind of the darker material that creates like an effect of a solid to void, but then the windows themselves they don't have the same relationship to that void. It's a different dimension. and some of them feel awkwardly located. And then at the ground level, you have all of the doors that are very privatized, and then you only have the little garage windows. And the other end of the building, the end that faces Thistle Ave, I think is a elevation that really needs to be considered, because that is, somewhat of a public face of the building, and it needs to be finished as a public face of the building. So there's two things there. One is kind of take another look at the solid to void ratio for the whole composition, not just the upper 2 stories, but also at the ground level. If we think about this area, we've heard from public comment that people like to walk through this area. Let's make it feel like a real welcoming place for guests to arrive, that kind of thing. I don't know that we have as many precedents of mid-century that greet guests in a very public way that would follow a lot of urban design principles. But I think we can probably dig a little deeper and find some decent examples that do, and so that there's that relationship between particularly the ground floor of the building and how people interact with it. Thank you.
I think Molly said it extremely well. I think that the solid to void ratio is an excellent point and something very constructive that could be thought about, as well as the massing along with the roof lines. Just looking at those other structures, I'm not sure how accurate. I didn't get the chance to visit the site. I know we had a lot of neighbors call in, so I'm not 100% sure if what's on Google Street View is still there, but I think there are a lot of examples just on that avenue that different window proportions and sizes could be taken from, as well as roof lines. But yeah, thank you, Molly. I think that once again was very well said. Or sorry, I also had one comment I just forgot about. Also, I think that potentially maybe the garages could be looked at once again. That isn't a feature that I know you probably want that space. To me, since we don't have that elevation, what I'm seeing from this Revit design, it looks like a double wide car garage. I'm not totally sure, but I think something else that would be helpful is if the entrances were proud of the garage, since we didn't typically see those garages in that era and those type of homes. So that's just another thought of if the entrances could potentially be more defined. It's just my final thought.
Thank you, Hayden.
Okay,
Other
we've
comments?
talked this to death. Can we table this now?
Yeah, we just want to make sure everyone's given the input. We don't want to give it to them later. So has everyone commented that wants to, we could maybe have a motion to table the application.
Maybe we could ask the applicant, have we given you enough direction that you think you can move forward on this if we table it and have you come back with an updated design?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Were you gonna?
This is Mike. I'm understanding that we're too busy on what I'll call the front elevation, which is what's on screen. I'm struggling with some of the other comments that we're not bringing in enough of the neighboring buildings. The building that I think we're being compared to is just to the north, and we're being compared to the back of that building, which is just a straight wall. Our end wall of this unit, which is the one that faces northeast to Thistle, is very similar to that elevation. And we were actually requested to add more openings to that elevation, which we did. It's a straight wall, mostly one material, two materials. So I think we have tried to incorporate that. Maybe we've missed it though. And then the comment around this being a walking area, this is the end lot of an alley. This is not a walking area. There is no walking paths here. There's parking behind the building to the north. So as to that comment, I'm not understanding what you're asking us to revise. I hear loud and clear that the committee thinks that we're too busy on what I will call the front elevation. But beyond that, and maybe the type of window that we put in, I get those. Those are very detailed comments. Thank you for that. But regarding the other comments, they're still kind of squishy for me. They're vague and they're conceptual, and I don't know that I understand what to change.
Yeah, fair enough, Mike. How I'd respond to that is on the level of it may seem contradictory, but we don't want to design your building for you, but at the same time, we feel like it needs some redesign. So we're trying to talk in architectural terms that your architect can consider, research, put his and your own approach to in order to create a building that's not identical to the neighbors. In fact, we'd like you to step beyond what the neighbors have done in creating an appealing, beautiful building that will appeal to your tenants and rent out all the time, but kind of raise the bar, raise the standard of what you can do within the context of that neighborhood. But you're right, they are vague, they're conceptual, they're kind of fuzzy, design geek kind of comments. But that's where we've got to come from in order to do this. Addressing specifically your the walking, that could be a specific thing. How will you address helping people to walk out of this building? How will they safely transit that out of your building and down the alley? We can't always be in cars. You're in an urban setting. So that's a specific thing. I'd like to see how you're addressing the site planning and allowing walking and use of your ground level space.
Well, that's one area I think we're being very consistent with the neighboring buildings. We're using the same walk path along Thistle. Thistle is the right of way. It is the walk path to the city streets. And so in that context, we are doing exactly what neighboring buildings are doing. That's one place I think we probably got it right. It sounds like there's a number that we didn't.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. I guess I didn't see that on the site plan, how that was addressed. So I appreciate your efforts in that direction.
Yeah, maybe I can just talk, and I do think I understand where you want, obviously the less busy and the classic modern, you want it to essentially take some of the mid-century modern and put it in there, similar to what some of the other buildings on that on the avenue there have. So I think I see what you guys are wanting to do, and so I think we can come up with something that will be more pleasing. And so I appreciate your guys' comments and trying to help us kind of catch a vision there. We'll definitely go back and put something together that we think you guys will like.
Thank you, Gary. And
Thank
there's
you.
There's a lot of good mid-century modern out there. And the backside of your neighbors' buildings aren't necessarily things that you need to follow. I think you can follow your design instincts and take this in a good direction and address the fact that we do have a walkable neighborhood, whether or not it appears that way. This is a walking neighborhood.
Just to tie this all into actual standards, I would recommend for the applicant that there's a set of standards that the commission has to review to approve this project, and they're the standards for new construction. They're addressed in the staff report, and maybe with your next submittal, you should bring in how your proposed development meets those standards.
Sounds good. We'll definitely do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me? This is Nelson.
Yes, Nelson.
Oh, okay. One thing that would be helpful is just a quick statement on the standards, on the conditions that we listed in the staff report. Does the commission concur with those? Are those things that we need to pursue further? One was pavement.
Are you on page 2?
Yes.
Yeah, I read through them before. I just, let's see. Did you get back to that?
Nelson, if I could jump in here, I think all 6 of those, well, not the final design details that we're delegating to staff, but all 1 through 5 are definitely items that the applicant could address, and they're all very specific and provide great direction. And tying into some of the earlier comments about, how the building, because of the awkwardness of the site, obviously it doesn't front Thistle Ave the way we typically see other buildings. But a lot of your comments or the conditions 1 through 5 are focused on how the building kind of presents itself, including the landscape, including that front entry, windows on that facade, etc. So I think there's really good direction there that should be incorporated or addressed by the applicant in the next round.
Thanks, Molly. And I just wanted to make sure that those were included explicitly. So you've covered it. Thank you.
Okay, let's if we could have a motion to table this.
I want Kenton to make the motion.
I can do that. Let me find the start of this. Okay, in the case of petition PLN HLC 2021-00081 and 2021-00534, 1126 East Thistle Avenue triplex, I move that we table this petition and ask the applicant to make design revisions as directed by the commission and return to us at a future date for another review.
I would change the word directed to suggested.
Suggested. I will accept that correction.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, let's go. Babs?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye. Aiden?
Aye.
Kenton?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Michael? Michael's still with us? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so that's.
Mike, can you give us like a thumbs up? He's giving you a thumbs up.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So we'll go ahead and good luck with that, Mike and others, and go forward. Thank you for coming tonight.
I wanted to say something. I just listed a property in West Valley, a Mullen home which is, you know, the crown of mid-century modern in Salt Lake City. And the exterior sheathing on the applicant's townhomes goes horizontally, you know, side to side. And on the mid-century modern, the sheathing would go up and down. And that might be an interesting thing to investigate. Not required, certainly, but certainly would look different and more mid-century modern. Just a thought.
It's a
Thank
challenge
you,
because
Ben.
mid-century modern
Thank you.
homes and mid-century modern apartment buildings are very different, and this is neither an apartment building nor a home.
True that.
You know?
We have one more item on the agenda tonight. That's a work session.
Sorry, if I can interrupt, we still needed to take action on the rules. So now might be the time.
Let me ask you,
jump
let
to
me
that.
ask you this, let me ask you this, Hannah, what is pressing about doing that tonight as opposed to next time? I'd like the chance to read them. They're fairly
Yeah.
long.
So Michaela went over the rules last week with the group. The main purpose for the rule update was to accommodate electronic meetings. And you do need to adopt a rule pursuant to state law to continue to hold meetings electronically without an anchor location. So,
Mike, it was a pretty straightforward presentation, and largely just to clean up in language. To that end, I move that we approve.
I'm fine with doing that. I'll read them, and if I want to amend them, I can bring that up later. So let's go ahead and get them approved, David, if you want to make a motion.
So moved.
Second that.
Second from John. Babs, you in favor?
In favor.
John?
Aye.
Aiden?
Aye.
Kenton?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
And Michael?
So.
He's giving a thumbs up.
Okay. There you go. Thank you, Molly. So we're about a water line over at Liberty Park. And Tom Millar. Tom, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being last after 3 hours, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's good to be starting off the 4th hour of an HLC meeting, but maybe it'll either get really, really good comments because you guys are really you're warmed up now, or you'll just want to go home, and so you'll give it to me straight. Either way, that sounds good to me. I'm going to talk to you tonight about the reconstruction of 900 South on the north edge of Liberty Park. This is an informational agenda item, and no action would be. I believe I can be corrected. I'm happy to be corrected, but I do not believe that any action would be necessary because all of the modifications to 900 South would occur in the public right-of-way rather than within the parcel that belongs to Liberty Park. Is that correct? Can a staff member or somebody on the commission confirm that?
That's correct. Though we typically do issue COAs for work in the right-of-way within a local historic district. The local historic district is to the north, and then Liberty Park, being a landmark site, is to the south.
Okay, thank you, Molly.
Yeah, so
this
is a work session. We're not, we won't be taking any action, but it might be possible that you may need our approval for something. We'll see.
Great. So let me give you an overview of the entire project, and then I'll tell you about the section that pertains to Liberty Park. We are going to be reconstructing 900 South between 900 West and Lincoln Street, which is 945 East. So that is 18 blocks, almost 3 miles of 900 South. It will not be a full depth reconstruction. It will be a partial depth, so the impact will not be as significant as a project like 400 South was, or a project like 900 South a couple of years ago was, just east of 9th and 9th. The things that we'll be doing as part of the project, in addition to improving the condition of the roadway itself, is several-fold. We'll be moving the south curb line of 900 South to the north, thereby narrowing 900 South itself, the roadway, but providing more space for sidewalks, for trees, for landscaping, and then introducing a new bicycling trail on the south side of the street that is above the curb in that park strip area. It'll be completely physically protected so that everybody feels comfortable riding their bikes on it, families, people with disabilities, people without disabilities. It'll be an all ages and abilities, family-friendly type of bicycle facility, not a bike lane just painted on the street. This project, the construction will occur between later this year and 2023, but we are not yet sure when the Liberty Park section will come up. And so right now, before we bid this to contractors, we are going out to the public for them to review our design, give us their ideas, and then we will incorporate those ideas where possible and include those in the final design. This concept of narrowing 900 South and having this wider southern park strip, having a trail in that area has been proposed many times over the last couple of decades, initially in the 1992 open space plan. And then again, we worked on a plan between 2015 and 2017 called the 9-Line Trail Extension Study. And then this project that's working towards construction. So it's definitely not a new concept, and we've had a lot of great support generally on the concept. We've really just been working with individuals and entities, stakeholders, business districts on finalizing the details and making sure that it works well for everybody. So I'll share my screen real quick and share some visuals with you about this project. As I mentioned before, all of 900 South here on the north edge of Liberty Park is within the public right-of-way. This yellow line is where the property line is. And so even this northernmost row of trees and the grass that's underneath those trees is within the right-of-way, though the public considers that obviously part of Liberty Park. Our design, this is a very, very rough sketch that I made before the meeting, but our design will be moving the curb to roughly this location in the existing road. It'll take up about 1.5 lanes of space, which is roughly about 20 feet. So this existing curb moves to the north, gets filled in with grass and with this trail. And a sidewalk and a trail do not currently exist on this south side of 900 South, though you can see a worn-in path where people jog, and that path will remain undisturbed. People can still jog on that soft surface around the park, but they will be able to ride their bikes and walk on this part of the 9-Line Trail, which once this project is completed in 2023, we will have a continuous, completely separated 9-Line Trail from 1100 East all the way out to Redwood Road, which is 1700 West. A very important connection for people walking and biking in the city, to have that completely separated facility running that east-west length for several miles. I also have a plan view of this design, and I just wanted to run through a couple of the details, proposed changes, and then I'd love to take your questions. Whoops, there we go. Okay, so starting at 5th East, just to familiarize you, this is the Beans and Brews coffee shop. This is the 205 bus stop, both on the north side and the south side. You'll see through the line work where the existing curb is, and then this new black line work will be where the new curb is. So you see the narrowing of the roadway. The trail avoids this row of trees, and we have confirmed with our urban forestry division that the location of the trail there will not, it'll actually reduce the impact on the roots, because right now the roots are underneath the roadway, which is very deep and heavily engineered and constructed to withstand the traffic that is on the roadway. As we go to a much lighter and shallower section for the trail, and then improve the landscaping around it, we will not only reduce the amount of stormwater that sheets off of the road, but we will reduce the impact on the roots there. As we approach 600 East, the signal that's at 600 East will remain, but some modifications to the geometry of this intersection will be made, where we will straighten out the crosswalks, and all crosswalks of 900 South will be much shorter than they are today. Today you have to walk from this corner diagonally over to this ramp, which is very difficult for people with disabilities, not knowing, especially vision impairment, not knowing where the ramp is going to be on the other side of the diagonal crosswalk. We will move this island here on that north entrance of Liberty Park to the north, continuing to have traffic exiting the park turn right only. And then we will extend this channel here and the median barrier that is in place to the north, so that the bicycle can come up here, push the button, and cross the street again with a much narrower, shorter crossing than they currently do. As we move to the east, the bus stop that is currently located right here will be relocated to the far side of 700 East, right here, which helps not only traffic flow, but improves service for the bus, because they don't stop for the stop and then stop for the red light. They make it through the light and then they stop. So the reliability of that service will be much better. And then I think maybe one of the more important design changes is here at this northeast corner of Liberty Park, where all of these users are the people who are walking and biking are crammed into this very small corner. We'll have a much larger corner plaza area to queue either for bike traffic on the north or walking traffic on the south. And then east of the park, they will again separate into sidewalk for walking only and bike trail for bicycling only. Putting the users out here rather than back here also gives them much better visibility, not only from traffic that's turning right, but from this traffic that's turning left, so that they're not hidden behind trees. They're out where the street lighting can illuminate them. And it'll be a shorter and much safer crossing. We're also working with the Utah Department of Transportation, which manages 700 East, to stop this right turn and this left turn from starting until the pedestrian and bicycle has the chance to move about 4 or 5 seconds into the intersection again, so that they're definitely more visible. And then last thing that I'll say before I take questions is that this project, though it is within the right-of-way, will, in the public's mind, enlarge the size of the park. And then the last visual that I would like to show is one of my favorite things, which is to say that Liberty Park is as big as Disneyland. Are you ready for this? Let's go to Disneyland. Okay, we're not talking parking lots. We're not talking California Adventure. But Disneyland, as bounded by the fence and the train, is roughly this big. So if we look at the measurements, 106 acres. Go back to Liberty Park. We turn it on. And we look at these measurements, we are at 99 acres. Now, the 106 acres of Disneyland is only with Star Wars land and some expansion of some other land that they have. So we're right there. We have, I think, something better than Disneyland, and we're
Yeah.
only making it better and
Keep
bigger.
keep the mouse out. Yeah, no mouse here. No.
Yes,
no mouse.
we will, Beth. We will. Yeah. Any questions? I'd love to take questions, and I'll stop sharing my screen for now, but I'll go back to any of those visuals that you want to.
Will there be any effect on those I don't know, the markers at the north entrance? The kind of gate, there's like a standard post thing.
Let me go there, and so that we can look at it together. Are you referring, John, to the historic Liberty Park monuments that have the planters on the top?
Yeah.
The short answer is no, there will not be. But let me bring up that visual just so everybody can see what we're talking about. These are those historic pedestals with the hanging plants up top. The trail itself, if we were to look at that monument and then pan to the west, the trail will be about here in that lane that's currently occupied by the outside lane of traffic. As it gets close to 600 East, it will bend in so that there's approximately a car length's distance between the crosswalk and the street, so that as a car turns in, they don't immediately turn across a crosswalk. They have a chance to slow down. They have a chance to see the users that are crossing, and they see them out of their windshield and out of their side windows rather than, you know, looking over their body, and a much safer geometric design for that turn.
Right on. That's cool. It's the north edge has always felt weird to me because of that, like, informal,
it is, yeah,
like you mentioned, where it's just trotted down grass, and like it's just not a very good boundary to me into the park. So I think it's great.
And it's funny because the north entrance is much deeper than the south entrance, but the south entrance has the trail, it has the jogging path, it has the, you know, all the kind of the goat trails as well, all crammed into like 20 feet. And this one, you do have a little bit more space to play with, and there will be even more space to play with in the future.
Also, that block of 9th South for cycling is not very comfortable. They're actually up to 9th East is the narrowest stretch of 9th South. I tend to avoid it when I ride. It'd be nice to have an alternative.
Yeah, I live in 9th. I would take 8th South rather than that, but then that's dangerous too because of the Smith's parking lot situation.
Agreed. Yeah.
One thing that I heard earlier in the meeting when I jumped on just to see where you guys were was a comment by, I think it was during the public comment period, regarding like a stormwater, like a retention, detention area. I don't remember who made that comment, but another benefit of this project on the utility side is that we are looking for areas where we can implement what's called low impact development or green stormwater infrastructure, where we take the stormwater that comes off of the impervious surfaces and we filter it and clean it before it goes back into the pipe. So if there are possibilities or ideas that this commission or others would like to propose, we are looking for those. We're basically just looking for anywhere that is technically feasible first, and then following up with those that own property or are stakeholders nearby. So if that's something that Historic Landmark Commission is interested in, we can look at the technical feasibility of such an implementation on that. I think what was made mention was that northwest corner, the 5th East corner of Liberty Park.
Pump it back into the Seven Canyons fountain sculpture. Get that thing running
Yeah,
again.
there you go.
And just keep the kids with diapers out of it.
Yeah. Is that something that we should look at? Is it something that the HLC, or to your knowledge, that the public lands divisions would be interested in us studying and implementing?
Can't speak for the commission, but I think that was a beautiful sculpture. Really a nice presence in the park. I'd like to see a return to action, but I don't know if that's in our
I think
purview.
we're far enough away south from that fountain to pipe it all the way over there. But if a separate feature that would be stormwater filtering would be of interest and compatible with the uses in the park, I think we definitely have space in that corner. I don't know if we have permission or the groundwater filtration that we would need to technically do it.
Yeah.
So I would leave that up to you guys and to the experts.
We'll put out a % for art proposal, get the Salt Lake Arts Council involved, get some sort of moving water thing where it can tumble and splash, make sound, but then also filter through and get UV light and do whatever you need to get the stormwater dealt with. But I guess you gotta keep people out of it though too.
Or we could just put a whale in there. That's my clock humor for everybody. So
yes, yeah. Isn't it a whale up at 11th and 9th? Is that okay? Yeah, there you go. Could be part of a school.
Anything else anybody has to share with Tom?
No, I move to adjourn.
I think it's been, yeah, we've been here for.
But Babs, we're just getting warmed up here.
Not in my world.
No, John, great proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tom, and good luck with what you're doing. And thank you, commissioners and everyone and staff for a long night together. We've got a lot done. Thank you for everybody's comments and efforts. We'll see you. I guess we're not going to meet again till the middle of July. It's been pushed back 2 weeks, so we'll see you in 6 weeks or so.
What's the date?
July 15th.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks later than normal.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, good job, fearless leader.
Okay, see you all later.
Bye.
Often asked which vaccination is the best. These are all very effective vaccines. No one is better than another, and we encourage anybody, don't worry about what vaccine it is.